There are powerful groups out there, government-sponsored groups, black market groups, occult groups with billions of dollars of capital in controlling thought, controlling attention, and controlling the currency of what all humans can know and think and speak about. The most dark and fucked up tragedies can be not what you were told.
Where has your research on Epstein landed you today?
It's really been proven out beyond any shadow of a doubt. Israel was the primary benefactor and the network behind this, and that Jeffrey Epstein's network in its entirety was an intelligence operation for Israel.
How many times have we had to learn that everything from the swine flu to the JFK, everything was a stage managed conversation at best? Have either of you heard of this Sasha Riley situation? It's a guy saying he was directly assaulted by Trump. If the viral win catches any bigger, it's going to probably be the biggest story of the year.
Mr. Ian Carroll, Mr. Chris Crutchfield drove through the night from North Carolina to be here with me. Thanks for being here, man.
Of course, man.
Ian, man, I have obviously, like many people who are watching and listening to this, been following you for quite some time. And your ability to synthesize complex, detailed information into short content is incredible. Like,
thanks, man.
Probably the best in the game, which is, I think, why you rose so quickly. A lot of other people have other ideas.
So. Yeah, I think that's mostly why.
Yeah, you know, some people have other ideas too, but
I love those ideas.
I know,
they're amazing.
I know. And we'll get into all that. I mean, I get called it all the time too. Like what did you say? A guitar?
Yeah.
Guitar. Man, so I think the most appropriate place to start is like your journey of quote unquote waking up, and you can be as brief as you want, add as much context as you want. I like to always start there with my guests just to, you know, get a sense of like where they're coming from.
Well, I come from Washington State from a very liberal background. Not like my family was political at all. Just I was surrounded by it everywhere. And my parents were teachers, and I never really thought about politics at all. And I was just like out in the mountains, snowboarding and then running and rock climbing and just kind of not paying attention very much. And in a big way, it was COVID that woke me up. COVID paired with a couple of other things like investing in GameStop and starting to watch financial corruption more closely, being up near Seattle when BLM protests started happening, and all this weird like duplicitous thinking that was kind of baked into that cake. So the whole amalgamation of 2020 election, COVID, BLM, GameStop, all those things, they really got me thinking about what is going on and what do I even know about the world. Started to have a lot of opinions, kind of early 30s. But in starting to think about sharing them online, I also realized that I didn't have anything to back my opinions up. Like I kind of had the identity of I'm a smart person from back when I was a kid and was like good at school, but had this whole 20s where I didn't nurture my intelligence really. Like I didn't read a lot of books. I didn't study anything.
How old are you right now?
Now I'm 33.
I'm also 33.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I know, right? Dude, don't worry. I'm in the club for a year and it's damn good.
You don't want me to do the interview this year. You were trying to do this last year.
Yeah. No, we had to wait till November. So I just kind of confronted my own ignorance at a certain point and realized like it kind of came out of GameStop as I wanted to be sharing the financial corruption that the GameStop community was coming up against, but it was all on Reddit. And I wanted to share that out into like short form content land, into TikTok and stuff like that and spread the word. But then realizing that like I didn't have any understanding to back it up. So that's where I sort of rewound to the very beginning and started with like really basic questions of like, how does the world work? Who owns everything? Who's feeding us information? And that one thing kind of just spiraled to the next, but it took off right from the very first video.
Where did you land with like who runs the world, so to speak? And how did you land there? Because like we're in the information age, and I think the problem now is not that they are obscuring or hiding information. Like that still happens, obviously. But a bigger problem is that there's information overload. So people don't know what to believe or where to land or what is true at this point.
Information overload and like so many fire hoses feeding in just like slop that might not be intentionally misleading or might not be, paid for or whatever nefarious thing. Some of it probably is. But at the very least, it just slopifies the whole space of trying to figure this out. And the real answer to that question is a complex understanding. Like there's no simple answer to who runs the world, obviously. But if you have to put it down to one word, I say the banks. The banks run the world. The bankers have always run the world ever since banking was invented. That's the whole point of banking and money. And I think it's fascinating to unpack how money works as a proxy for human cooperation and how monetizing cooperation allows all of society to happen, but also allows all the corruption that has followed to happen. But it's not like just the banks run the world. When I really dig into it, it's a moving target that you're always coming to understand better. And it comes down to sort of relationships and incentive structures. And the more you understand power and powerful people and how powerful people work, the more you understand how they wheel and deal and exchange favors, the more you understand how they can influence whole ecosystems of our world with simple inputs and outputs, simple tweaks to incentive structures. And you learn those sorts of things by studying the various systems. Like BlackRock was one that I studied a lot early on. And there's all these sort of surface level conspiracies about BlackRock, how they control the world, which they do have a lot of power. But in understanding the deeper ways that BlackRock actually leverages power and actually does push markets and push culture and society, you come to understand one of the many incentive structures and how a guy like Larry Fink, who's in charge of BlackRock, can push the entire corporate world in America and abroad with one letter a year or with one policy decision. And that is sort of indicative of the way that power is exerted on a vast scale in all these systems is by changing incentive structures and leveraging whole systems with sort of like the turn of one switch or the lean of one lever, so to speak.
Yeah. It's wild how much BlackRock has its tentacles in like everything. I mean, even down to Vital Farms, which is an egg brand that I had previously.
They're a heck of a rabbit hole.
Yeah, man. Like recently I found that BlackRock is one of the largest shareholders of Vital Farms once it went public. And it's like, my God. And that really like brings into question whether it's a good move to go public for like any company at this point.
That was my end result of learning all about that side of the world was that public companies, the whole corporate structure of the American economy is built towards corporatism, and corporatism is built into this controlled incentive structure where, like in theory, it's a great idea that you can have a publicly traded company where all of us invest, like we can all invest in it. We can all hold voting power. Each share is one vote. It's really actually a democratic way of structuring business where the more you care about a company, the more you invest your money in the company, the more votes you get to control the company. But when you really think about it, it comes back to who has the most money to control the most companies. And suddenly you realize it's not even just the banks, although the banks are the big piece of this. It's that then they've created the structure that BlackRock emerged out of, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, where they actually have now leveraged all of our capital too by getting us to hand over our voting rights and the management of all of our shares and all of our retirement capital, where now, I forget the exact numbers, but it was like they control like somewhere in the ballpark of 70 to 90% of the voting power indirectly and directly in that marketplace. And it's very complicated because they don't literally control that much of the capital. But when you think about the fact that Vanguard and BlackRock are the top two voting members of like 90% of the public companies' boards, it starts to become pretty apparent that it's, I might have, 0.5% of the shares if I'm really rich, but that doesn't mean I actually am going to make a difference when I vote. Because then you look at these ownership sheets of every public corporation in America, and it's Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, and then it's all their banking buddies that also own each other and also own them. And so it's just a big financial cabal that they've created this system that seems like it's this distributed, fair financial ecosystem, but it's actually just a monopoly that the moment that Vital Farms goes public, which is this egg company that was fully
started with 20 hens.
Yeah, supposed to be this family founded, great B corporation, public benefit corp, all the right boxes checked. And I actually had this really cool story of taking the family farm model, but then bringing in sort of like corporate knowledgeable powerhouses to run it right and make a good egg company. And then it's like, oh, it grows big enough. Let's go public. And then who's going to buy all the shares? The same old boys as always.
Right, man. Gosh, it's just crazy. Chris, I'd love to hear from you on this as well. Just like any additions to the question I'm about to ask. But you landed on that the banks and like really banking is what runs the world. And that's kind of where I'm at too. And at the same time, there's, I think, a lot of historical precedent regarding like one, secret societies, and then also possibly the Vatican, possibly the British Crown, Has any of your research landed you there as well? Like,
oh yeah.
In addition to banking?
Big time. Yeah. It's harder to pin down. And the way that I would look at it is that those organizations, and I would sort of group them into the Catholic Church in general, old British royalty as a sort of proxy for all of old European royalty, and
banking too.
Yeah. And I would also add the Rothschild family as a unique nexus point in that, because they were one of the first banking, arguably one of the first banking families that sort of internationalized banking in a family model that then really turned into sort of like a religious Jewish model that and there's probably more than just those three, but those three are good proxies for sort of some of the different ways that this quiet, darker, secret society sort of power structure underpins everything. But ultimately, I think they exert their power through not just money, but money is a pretty obvious proxy for the types of power that are trading hands, because they are, exchanging favors and doing rituals and sort of like in clubbing and out clubbing.
It's like the mechanism is banking by which these other entities, secret societies, everything else I just named, uses in order to get their tentacles and everything.
And everything, all the power that is exerted, all the end flows of that power, there are operations and companies and things that all require money. So there's money that has to flow behind the power into whatever they're trying to do anyways. So there's always a money trail in whatever direction they're exerting their influence, even if the money isn't sort of the origin state of the influence. Like in a lot of cases, like when you trace back to like Skull and Bones as one secret society here in America from Yale, and you look at the Bush and Kerry election where they're both bonesmen from the same class, it's not like money is the root of Bush's and Kerry's power in that situation and of whoever else is there around them in that situation. But certainly there's a lot of money in all those pockets that are playing games around their power structures. So I just kind of look at the money as the trail that is left behind from these sort of deeper allegiances and motivations. Because ultimately, I don't think they want the money. I think they want the unattainable things that money can't buy, because they've already got all the money and they've already got everything that money can give you. And that's where you get to stories like Epstein, where when you really dig into the type of people that get wrapped up in those really dark stories, it becomes pretty obvious that what they're searching for is exactly what they can't buy. That's what's the most valuable to those kinds of people.
Where has your research on Epstein landed you today? I know you talked about that quite a bit when you were on Rogan and some other shows you've been on, but where are you at now with the whole Epstein thing? Because like for me, I wonder if, I know that there's been stuff that has been published that is unredacted, like flight logs and things like this. But in terms of an actual client list, I'm wondering if that was a psyop from the very beginning, like sort of a dangling carrot to get so many people focused on it. And that's not to say that there is not actually a group of pedophiles that are largely in, some big seats in banking and the government, et cetera, et cetera. But I just wonder if the actual list of people who went to the island was a psyop from the beginning to get us all focused on that, while the technocratic agenda, digital IDs, and all of the other things. And then also ultimately all that as a distraction away from like our own internal power, which, I'm very big on with the event that we run, Confluence. But yeah, I just want to know your thoughts on all that.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, is that when you're focused on who bought the services, you're not focusing on the network that was selling, procuring, and creating the services in the first place. And yeah, obviously all the Johns that bought Epstein's services that raped girls, fuck them, and they should go to jail. But ultimately, the bigger power structure to attack is the providers of the service. It's like you don't go after just the people buying Coke. You go after the cartels that are supplying it and the government agents that are allowing it to get in and profiting off of it. And I think that sort of psyop fell apart to a certain extent because they were always about the client list.
And I could be wrong, by the way. There could actually be one.
I mean, you could certainly compile one. The thing is, like, I could tell you the client list right now. Like, we have like 20 names at least, like, that are very well confirmed, as well as many, many more
that have verified gone to Epstein Island, were on the Lolita Express.
Yeah, it's just one example. Jess Staley, who was in charge of the private wealth division of JP Morgan, very good friends with Epstein. And we have emails directly back and forth between him. We have emails from when Jeffrey Epstein was in jail the first time. And Jess Staley was in his hot tub on his private island without Jeffrey Epstein there, texting him about how good of a friendship they have and how profound it is. We have emails back and forth between them about what sounds like code words for young girls of like, say hi to Snow White for me. What girl do you want next? Give me Beauty and the Beast. We have all sorts of emails back and forth about money and about the exchanging of these services. So there's a bunch of people that we actually have a lot of hard evidence already. And the conversation always gets skewed because it skews towards this concept of like what's already in the files, as though we don't have law enforcement agencies whose job is to investigate things and can't investigate further. It's like, bro, go open up their stuff, go look in their computers, go raid their houses. Like Leslie Wexner, the bankroll for the entire operation for the most part has never been touched. No one's ever gone and asked him a single question. And he ran 2 different sex trafficking rings. He ran the boys ring out of Abercrombie and Fitch and Hollister, and he ran the girls ring out of Victoria's Secret with Jeffrey Epstein. And so there's so many layers to how the attention is trying to be controlled on the story to just focus on the salacious, like crazy names that were in the files, like how the Michael Jackson photo got slipped into the recent photo dump, had nothing to do with it, because they're trying to just get you to focus on like Trump or Clinton. Oh my God, Michael Jackson. Oh my God, like David Copperfield, Chris Tucker. But in reality, it's like that is such a small piece of the story. The much bigger piece of the story is the giant network that creates this and the power structures that it enables. And the fact that this is not an isolated incident. This is a system that's been going on for forever. And the big one that sort of was a conspiracy theory for a long time, but has really been proven out beyond any shadow of a doubt, is that Israel was the primary benefactor and the network behind this, and that Jeffrey Epstein's network in its entirety was an intelligence operation for Israel. Therefore, all of that blackmail is still somewhere in Israel in a vault, because you'd have to be pretty dumb to run a blackmail ring and not send the blackmail back to headquarters.
If you frequently tune into the Way Forward podcast, don't skip this one. This is personal. If you've ever felt a shift from something that you've heard on this podcast, if it's helped you to see things more clearly, if it's helped you to break down a limiting belief system, if it's helped you just to generally question, or if it's helped you to feel less alone, then I'm asking you from my heart to help us keep going. We're not backed by corporate sponsors, venture capital money, or big donors, and that has been a deliberate choice. And we've said no to a lot of ad deals that weren't aligned because we don't want our mission to be shaped by products, brands, and agendas that we don't actually believe in. There are a few trusted brands and products that do support us, and we're incredibly grateful for that. But the reality is, this is primarily sustained by our listeners and viewers. Right now, this podcast has roughly 140,000 video and audio downloads a month, and it's continuing to grow. And only a small fraction of that actually help contribute financially. That's not a guilt trip, it's just the reality. We haven't said this directly enough, so here it is. If you'd like this podcast to continue, please help support us by becoming a member of thewayforward.com. If even a small fraction of listeners and viewers chose to support, we'd be able to easily sustain this. A membership at thewayforward.com is $99 annually, which amounts to about $8 a month. Think of it like a couple organic kombuchas at your local health food store, or maybe a fancy latte every month. And also think of it like this. In addition to ensuring that we can continue, you're actively supporting yourself in the process. Thewayforward.com is a private membership platform that allows you to instantly connect with aligned people, practitioners, farms, schools, restaurants, and more in your local area. And if the platform isn't for you, we've added a donation option as well. You'll find both of those in the show notes. If you've received something from the show, please consider giving back by becoming a member so we can continue to reach people, not just as a podcast, but as a movement for something good, true, and beautiful. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for walking this path with us. Do you think this is largely, exclusively, partially why the Israeli government has so much influence over the US government and its policies?
I think it's partially because the Israeli government, Israel as a nation state, they have so much leverage over Jewish identity, and Jewish people naturally, understandably, based on their history, have so much allegiance to the concept of global Judaism and to the survival of their people. Totally understandable. And so once this state comes to represent the hope for all of that future, and any threat to that state represents the end of that future, right? Like you wind up in a place where they can not only do they have this intelligence operation that is, no Israelis knew that Epstein was a thing. Most of the Israeli government wouldn't have known that he existed. It would have been this tiny little siloed, compartmentalized thing. But not only do they have that, but they also have an entire network of Jewish people all around the world that have a lot of power, that have, banking institutions or media institutions or, whatever else it is. And not all of those Jewish people are going to play ball with Israel's goals, but they're the kind of people that Israel would call first if they need help with something. And when you look at the American conversation today about free speech and about war in Iran and about all these things, and you just look at all of the Jewish billionaires in particular that are just sort of like endlessly dying on the hill of what Israel wants us to do, it becomes pretty obvious that it's a very complex network of influence that Jewish people are sort of inherently biased towards helping Israel in that. And it takes a really strong ethos to step out of that and say, no, I'm going to go against my people and against my state for what's better for America or what's better for whoever else. But
it's also because there's a lot of conflating the historical biblical Israel with the modern Rothschild created nation state that is Israel, tyrannical government at that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when I look at that whole big picture, to me, that looks like a front for a gigantic organized criminal faction that is reaching out all around the world. And I'm not saying it's just a Jewish organized crime faction. It interlinks with all organized crime. Like once you're in intelligence agencies, you're interfacing with all organized crime and vice versa. But in organized crime, blood tends to be the tie that binds the strongest. That's why you have the mafia is Italian and the mob is Jewish and the Yakuza are Japanese and the Bratva are Russian. That's just always how it's been. And so in the organized crime world, you would imagine that the Jewish nodes would stick together and work towards the betterment of their collective good. And when you look at how Israel was founded and who funded it and who, like at the government level, at the highest government level, and what they're doing now with that power, it looks an awful lot like sort of a rebranding of a organized crime network into nation state authority, which gives them a whole lot more power than when they were just, criminal gangs on the streets of New York.
Got it. Chris, do you have anything to add? I know you've done a lot. Dude, you've done a lot of... You're one of the most well-read biblical scholars that I know, well-researched.
Which is one of my biggest weak points.
Yeah, dude, he can put you on game for that.
So what I will say is I want to connect your first question to Ian with your second question to Ian and simply support the banking answer because I agree with that. And kind of what I think you're explaining with regard to the whole Epstein ring. So you've seen the little preview of this project that I'm working on. I've drawn, I think you've seen the map I showed you. In the center of that is banking. And the purpose of that is the same visual explanation of what you were just explaining a few minutes ago, where the financial incentives are what drive everything outwards, or in your model from a top-down perspective. And the one thing that I had to come to learn with rounding out the legal and statutory side of this whole matrix is that this whole system is set up on this trust versus trust, entity to entity conversation.
You mean like actual formation of a trust with a grantor, trustee? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are all these buckets or vehicles or entities that we are engaging with, whether we realize it or not, the government and one another to do pretty much everything we do in life. I always thought, the green stuff in our wallet is called money. It was only in the few recent years that I learned that that's not money at all. That's actually legal tender. And it's a form of currency. And currency is electric. You see, it's like the current in the sea. It's kinetic. Mm-hmm. It's AC/DC. It's like current. It's like these homonyms exist for a very real phonic reason. And what I had to learn was that human beings are very valuable currency. And once money, especially once you own a mint, once money isn't your driving factor anymore, once your MO for what you do about why you wake up every day and do what you do has more to do with control or ideology or legacy or ego or anything other than financial increase, because you kind of hit that threshold, or you just hit a button and quantitative easing and derivative swaps create more money for you in these funny money markets, then your desire is no longer money. But what it is currency, because the currency is what's actually up for, we're in the process of changing that currency from paper notes into blockchain-based tokens with crypto hashes and cryptography associated with that currency, but it's still based on electrical current, you see? So I get a little simple to really just honestly support what Ian's saying here in this particular instance, because my research has led me to that. It's essentially cousins with different logos. It's family business. It's always been family businesses from antiquity to the Babylonians or the Assyrians or the Persians, Media Persians of the biblical times. These were always family dynasties. Nebuchadnezzar was essentially it's a conjunction word, the czar of this area of time during this period of time, just like Caesar and, different pharaohs and different things. So my point is, this Epstein conversation is really, if you ask me, a massive psyop from the perspective that even though it's true, like this carpet is beige, right? But if I were to snatch 1 or 2 fibers out of this carpet, that carpet might be gray, or it might be brown, or it might be beige, or you might be a conspiracy theorist because how can you not see that it's beige, bro? Like, what's wrong with you? So I give that analogy to saying that Epstein didn't traffic anybody to nobody. And the conversation
around— What do you mean by that? Epstein didn't traffic anybody to nobody.
I'm saying he trafficked plenty of people, but it wasn't a giant—
Okay, double negative was intentional.
Exactly,
okay,
precisely. Okay. I did pass grammar class, I promise, but the double negative was on purpose. It was to simply reiterate, come on, you guys, it's not that hard to be helpful. It's really not hard to solve things when we put our heads together. What's clearly evident here is they're not trying to solve anything. That became for me the important distinction between, do my emotions continue to get invested in this, or do I understand what's going on and I learn the wider picture of what's going on? Because all of our awakening journeys and everybody watching, I'm sure, happen at different times. And I do think that that's why we all can help each other in this regard. But starting in 2015, for me, I was 5 years in when COVID started, and I'm looking at everybody like, come on, you guys, it's the government. Duh. When have they ever told us the truth? How many times have we had to learn 20, 30 years later that everything from the swine flu to the JFK to everything was a stage managed conversation at best and a skit and a whole lot of other bullshit at worst? And what I really think you guys are speaking to here is that if you really stop thinking about it like money and you start thinking about it like currency, and you understand that the electrical soul inside of every corporeal body is currency. And when you flatline, they're going to take that defibrillator and put some current through it, you see? So if we, like for me anyway, it helped me to start viewing it all as different pockets or buckets of energy. And when you view it like that and you see that this the central flow from the control through these families that own different banks that are called different trusts under different multinational corporations and different holdings companies that all end up to the top 7 BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, but also the other nephews, cousins, and son-in-laws that they own. We all seen the show Succession. We know how this works. We get the dynasty concept is how it's always been. I just need the adults in the room, and I'm not talking about you guys, but I need people who kind of have a hard time rounding this corner to just go, if you want to help, it's not hard to help. If y'all not being helpful, it's because y'all not trying to be helpful at the adult level. If we're talking toddlers in kindergarten, okay, we have mercy and space for that. But we're talking professionals, right? So I'm just a bit weary of the buffoon excuse. Oh, he's such an idiot. Biden, such an idiot. Trump, such an idiot.
Oh, no, sir.
Oh, no, sir.
No.
So because I understand at least a little bit just about the patterns that I've seen in my 41 years of living, even if you subtract 4 minus 1 is 3, and that's 33 plus 3. I'll never do mine for you because it's probably going to be released on the 30th. Anyway, so in my 41 years of living, it's just been evident to me that families or special interest groups that seem to be amongst bloodline, and like, why is that a bad thing, right? That's a smart concept in every other concept.
Yeah. I'd want to do right by my family first.
Right. The other thing you said about most Jewish people having this existential threat of their own existence being tied to the state's existence and the scrutiny on the State Department. And I have so much empathy and understanding of that, because when I came to that awareness, it was one of those like, well, yeah, but like, get in line. Like, hello, Black people have to go forward and be bold enough to say, hey, Black culture isn't actually good for you. I'm sorry if I have to break it to you. You know, like what they're selling as Black culture is a problem. If you're too scared to say that, you're the coward here.
It's designed to destroy you.
Correct. I mean, none of you guys here are racist, but if you ever enter that situation, that's a kind of an antiquated way of speaking. I was kind of in vogue to do that. But even in the concept of defending the death of the white male concept, which I, as a Black male, totally see happening from I see the assault. Like I see the bullets.
I had Shadow Jackson on recently. We talked about this a lot.
Shadow Jackson's great. Yeah.
Yeah. He's great.
And what I just take away from it is that humility and accountability is really what it is. And this idea that Ian is Ian, Alec is Alec, Chris is Chris, and we are not America. We collectively have a nickname called Americans because we were all born under this thing that was all going on. But the State Department's actions are not our conscience, and the identity of most Americans that can't trace their heritage back to anything real is just as volatile as the Black folk that can't trace their heritage back to anything real, or the Native Americans that can't trace their heritage, or the Europeans that's some Cabbage Patch flubbermuckers that can't trace their heritage back to anything real.
I see what you're getting at here, because like it really is such a nefarious thing to get Jewish people who many of them have never even stepped foot in Israel at all to self-identify with the nation state of Israel. I mean, it still happens to us. There's been multiple times on this podcast, and I say this, I used to be in the government. I went to West Point. I was in the Army for 5 years, but all of us do. Shut up. All of us do this, right? Where if I'm casually talking about an action of the U.S. government, I will say we sent troops there. I'm like, did I push a button to send any troops there? Did I make any of those decisions? No, I didn't. So like, I see where a lot of Jewish people do that with respect to Israel, and we all do it too with respect to the U.S. government. We say we, when really what we're really referring to, if we really question how much we do that, we're talking about the collective group of people, and very generally speaking, because what is American values these days? I don't even know. But generally speaking, like the customs and courtesies and the values of the people on this land, irrespective of the government.
But there's a piece that doesn't exist in the conversation around American like that, where when I say our government went and bombed Venezuela, and fuck them for doing that, and I start criticizing our government, there's no propaganda campaign that's going to slide in there and say, you hate all white people. Why would you hate all white people? You just criticized America. Because there's no money being funneled into that specific propaganda narrative. But with Israel, there is definitely money being funneled into, and intention being funneled into, a propaganda narrative that gets disseminated through the minds of the voices of the little yappers that will yap at you, that will hear a criticism of the government of Israel and slide in and say, oh, you hate Jews?
Dude.
Which is obviously not the thing that's being said.
Can I share something with you real quick and we'll hold your train of thought? When we announced that you were speaking at Confluence, dude,
I bet.
We've had a lot of controversial people speak at Confluence, but obviously like none, especially at that point in time.
It
like
exploded after Rogan.
Yeah, exactly. But we had multiple people call Sovereignty Ranch, which is where we hold it, and say, what the hell are you doing allowing this anti-Semite? I'm going to boycott your event. I'm going to make sure no one comes to your event.
It's a fear tactic. Man. So I had an event scheduled that I was going to throw that was just about journalism, about getting the left and right together and just getting everybody into one room to just have conversations, nothing to do with Israel. And they started calling the family that owned the venue and threatening the family and threatening them financially and threatening their kids and they just fear until that family had to back out. And it's like totally understandable because they didn't know what they were stepping into. They didn't know that this is like the information space today, unfortunately, is a battlefield. It's an information war. I always think about the name InfoWars, and despite what Alex is up to right now, but the word InfoWar is such an interesting like mnemonic for what is going on. because we're like, I would love to just be here having a conversation with my bros, like just talking about shit. Like, I'm not trying to have a war. I'm just trying to talk about ideas and figure out what's going on. But there are powerful groups out there, government sponsored groups, black market groups, family, occult groups that have a vested interest with billions of dollars of capital in controlling thought and controlling attention and controlling the currency of what all humans can know and think and speak about. And so, unfortunately, that means that they're funneling these agendas into our conversation space because, like you're saying, money is just money, but attention is a currency that cannot be replicated. It can't be faked. Everyone has exactly one lifetime's worth of it to give, and there's no redos. And wherever people pay attention, that's where the collective understanding shifts.
They pay attention.
Exactly.
Literally, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so coming from teaching, that's actually why I'm in this industry, because I realized as a teacher that all of my kids are doing this. And I can tell them to pay attention as much as I want, but they're paying attention here. And so if I want to actually reach out to young people and help them understand the world better, I need to be in here where they're paying attention. And you have to play the games of attention to a certain degree. And all the bad actors in this world know that too. And so they're funneling bad information. They're funding influencers. They're funding campaigns. They're trying to silence people that say things they don't like. And I'm not just talking about Israel in that regard. That's a universal game pattern that we're all stuck in.
Of course, 100%. I want to get into your thoughts on like mainstream alternative media, which is a term David Icke has coined. And I know like you have some...
I think David Icke is awesome, dude.
Let me say one more thing
I have
too.
No problem with him.
I ran... Well, he has some issues with you for some reason. Funny enough, I think like he assumes that you're controlled, and
which is like fair. I have no problem with him thinking that.
Well, this is the point that I want to get to. I ran a summit in 2023 called The End of COVID, where we took people on a 108-hour journey of every single intricate detail of what happened with COVID. 28 hours of which was on virology alone. So like we went deep into the details on what exactly happened with COVID to show people as an example, like this is how the pandemic industrial complex runs. And it's all like quite literally down to the idea that the virus has been demonstrated to exist, a complete psyop, and we go into all details. All that to say, I included David Icke in that event, and there was a bunch of people trying to cancel me for that event, assuming that I was controlled opposition because I had David Icke on, and they're like, I know for sure David Icke is controlled opposition. So the irony is like, especially these days, it's just a bunch of people pointing fingers without any... Yes, dude, and this is what I think. This is what I think though, for real. I think, of course, there are real controlled operatives in the media, in the alternative media, in these various movements. I fully acknowledge that. But I think these days, the biggest elements of intentional agents, because you can be controlled opposition without even knowing you're controlled opposition, in that like someone is feeding you bad info and you're taking it at face value and you're parroting it. Like you are there for unwittingly controlled opposition. I think the biggest factions of controlled opposition these days are the nameless, faceless people that have, whatever amount of following on the internet that are getting everyone to be paranoid of anyone who has even 100%. The smallest platform saying they're controlled opposition, dude, because I'll just give you an example. I had a conversation with this dude the other day who he made a post about me, and I don't even go defend myself anymore, saying that I'm 99% sure Alec Zeck is controlled opposition. He went into the details. And I shared one of his posts later on because it was a great post. And someone commented on my post and said, he thinks you're controlled opposition, right? I was like, that's his prerogative. That's fine. This post is still great. And he saw that and he reached out to me and he was like, hey man, I want to have a conversation with you. I was like, let's talk, dude. I got on the phone with him and he asked me a bunch of questions. I was like, that's not true. Where did you find that? And he was like, oh, well, I heard it from someone else. Or he's like, well, what about this picture of you? I'm like, well, here's the video. And it's like a picture of me like putting my hands a certain way. And if you look throughout the video, I was one time like this, one time like this, one time like this, and then like this towards the end. And they framed that one and said he's trying to signal that he's like a Satanist or something like that. And by the end of the conversation, he was like, wow, I realize that I'm just parroting what other people are saying that I'm seeing online. And the whole point that I'm getting at is it's like, I think that is the largest faction of controlled opposition. But what are your thoughts on mainstream alternative media, mainstream media, and just controlled opposition in general?
I think there's two conversations you just brought up. And the first one being this COINTELPRO, make everyone suspicious of everyone else. That's the oldest trick in the book. They pioneered it during the civil rights movement. It worked really fucking well, like down to getting like Black Panthers to assassinate each other because they thought that like, you're fucking working for the feds. No, you're fucking working for the feds. And that's only gotten more effective online. And you're totally right about the faceless accounts and the bots that then kind of parroted and spread it all around. And the ultimate, like the way that I look at it is that you can't, I don't know. Like, I don't fucking know. I could sit in a podcast room with, like, I podcasted with Tim Pool, right? My very first podcast ever was with Tim Pool, and it was a great time. It was awesome. He was a ton of fun. All of his team was super fun. I had no problem with it, but I only said what I believed, and I only said what I wanted to say. And like, maybe Tim made some deal with Israel in the future. I don't fucking know. Doesn't really matter to me, because what I base everything off of is, what are they saying, right? Like, what are their words and actions? And can I verify it for myself, right? And judge the tree on their fruits. And if the fruits check out when you check them out for yourself, then take those fruits for what they're worth. Don't trust the tree. The tree can always be bought out. It can be sold. It can make a bad decision. You can love everything they do, and then something weird happens. They can get into financial trouble. They can get blackmailed out of nowhere. Who knows? So just like, be like, I don't mind when people are suspicious of me, because like, I have a suspicious rise. Like, I grew crazy fast. And if I was sitting in the other chair, like on the other side of the world, looking at my rise, I'd be like, who the fuck is this guy? And that's cool. You should
That's
be
understandable.
Yeah, you should
it
be
really
critical
is.
of everyone. Like,
I've gone in defense of you, not like I'm like the biggest fanboy of Ian Carroll, but like, I like to look at it from the perspective of just like nuance and black and white and context. Like the other thing that bothers me in the truth space is the lack of context. And it's like, do you know anyone else who's a good looking dude? I'm not gay. Who's a good looking dude who, that mustache though, man. But I'm just kidding. But
have you seen Nick Fuentes' beard?
No, but for real, have you seen anyone else who is able to synthesize content as well as you have? And
it's
that's
a
where
real
I was
niche.
like, yeah, man.
And
I'm like, I don't know anyone who has.
When I brought that, because I got good at that on TikTok, where more people are doing that, but not necessarily as much on a like journalism backed by sources kind of a way. Brought that to X, where really the conversation was still stuck in typing and texting land, and no one was really doing the TikTok thing on X yet. And then the Diddy story broke, and then like so when you actually look at what I did and how it worked, it was actually very understandable in the fact that I bring that TikTok viral style content to X, and then the Diddy story breaks, which I'm deep in on, and then I bring new facts that Candace Owens picks up and starts sharing, and it's like, no shit, you're going to grow super fast on X at that point. But it's there's that conversation about this sort of COINTELPRO-y kind of suspicion ops and all that. And then the other piece of the new media is the agencies, the big organizations, the Turning Point USA, the Daily Wire, PragerU, right? Those are on the right, and there's others on the left. And that space is a fucking psyop. And I think that the Charlie Kirk assassination and the subsequent investigation into Turning Point USA, as well as what happened at the Daily Wire last year, lest we forget what was exposed as they kicked Candace out, and then their financial issues came out, and then the way they treated it, like, it's becoming more and more apparent that I think every single one of those agencies is funded by sketchy organizations, probably by nation state intelligence agency organizations. And that's actually, I'm doing a show later tonight about the sort of a trail has been emerging specifically relative to Charlie Kirk and TPUSA, where a ton of these guys are coming out of Liberty University. A ton of them have these trails back to these like kind of quiet, dark funding sources that lead to what look like intelligence operations in the case of like the Moon Cult, in the case of many of these donors that are kind of behind the scenes. And you start to realize that like, we kind of thought of that as normal back like 10 years ago when the Daily Wire took over YouTube and their shows were everywhere, because it just was reminiscent of what we were used to from the TV era. But it's only now that we've all like grown into this era where now it's like, I know what it's like to start an independent TikTok channel. I know how the views work. I know how the money works. I know how much it costs to run a YouTube ad. And I know how much they pay me. I've done the math on if I wanted to start a network and get multiple journalists like working together to do a joint YouTube channel, how would you make that like a beneficial financial arrangement? And you very quickly realize that those outfits are fucking, that's a lie.
Hundreds
There's
and hundreds
funding
of millions
flowing
of dollars
into that.
Absolutely.
And they are just they are burning money every single day. And so you start to think like, who wants to burn money to spread those ideas? And I think that that's the sort of push and pull between truly independent voices on this social media space. And those are the ones that get all these fucking, you're controlled, no, you're controlled, no, you're controlled, to try to break it all up and just focus the attention on these big boys at the big events.
Totally, man. And the other thing too, just to add some context, is like this studio that we're in right now, we're literally in an apartment at an apartment complex in the living room.
And that's how all the best ones are.
Yeah, for
just
real,
people
though.
setting stuff up with their own shit in their own spots.
Yeah, man. Like that's all this is. I know it probably looks great on camera, and it is. Like shout out to Soundshed Studios, but that's all this is. And just to run this, like it's a lot. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of time, the editing. So when I think along those same lines too, and like I know you've worked in, you're a filmmaker. You have like, you have all the receipts to share about this. Those types of organizations, yes, like hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more than that, flowing into them to keep them going, especially because nowadays they're talking about shit that no one is interested in. People are all past that.
They're actually objectively lying to you and trying to keep you on trains that no one agrees with anymore and trying to pretend like they're still cool. So it's like, not only are they burning money on the back end of making the content, they're also burning money on pushing it as ads. And then they're burning money on bots to inflate their views. It's insane when you really start to unpack what the controlled alternative media space really is. And when you extrapolate how important this currency of attention must be for them to spend that much money trying to control it.
It's the energetic seed that leads to their decisions coming to fruition in your mind. It's like Inception, honestly. Yeah. It's like essentially the movie premise to Inception is the financial same exact reason of what Ian was just explaining. So that you think it's your idea to take this action about justice and truth and liberty and white supremacy and white and black excellence and all that. And it's all like funding. And, you know, for anybody who might not be familiar with my heart on the matter in terms of ethnicities and identities, I have a tremendous amount of love for Jewish people, white people, black people, Mexican people, half people, full people, short people, tall people. What I had to learn was that at a certain point, it is more loving to someone to quit patronizing them and to hit them with some truth that is hopefully warm and clear enough so that they can grow. And I was, you know, in my lifetime, I've been able to experience I've had my own prejudices, right? But me being in groups of friends who are Jewish and kind of witnessing some external prejudice happening to them and being like, oh, okay, so it's not just in your head. It's like real, y'all be getting shitted on like everybody else. Welcome to the party. Happy life. But not to make light of it. It's simply to say, I gained a lot of empathy in my journey because for me, being raised kind of conservative Christian, when I started doing the deep dive on who is Jesus and where does this all come from, and it led me back to a Jewish man from Palestine, from the region of Judea. And it mattered because for the first time I cared about the historicity of it. And I learned that I was given the Cliff's Notes version in my own childhood.
Through evangelical churches.
Exactly. What I realized is that most people, like most Jewish people, don't fully understand, like most black people, white people, Christians, Muslims, atheists, Jews, everybody in between, don't necessarily understand the on paper backstory of where the concept of the word Israel even comes from, much less what happened in the 1st century, much less what happened in the 4th century, much less what happened in the 19th century. So there's just all these little, well, you move this and then you remove that and then you don't define this. And so we're all in a situation where people are being, like real people's feelings and life are being affected on both sides of this Palestinian Jewish issue. But the saddest part is that the people inflicting it aren't really Jewish. I think they're stealing the identity of a group of people that they don't belong to. And I hope that doesn't come off as anti-Semitic or insensitive because I am the victim of that same thing happening. My own heritage and identity being stolen and misapplied under this concept of a brand new word called Black excellence or Black community. And what has come to my attention is that I think all of these subcultures in the world are going through a unique type of a psyop individually for 100 years now. Black people subjected so that now with the anti-subjection, they can rise in their full licentiousness to help bring the world into this utopian, black, morally degenerate future. White people are given this faux superiority just so that when it comes crashing down, their identity comes crashing down with it, and they don't stand arm in arm with their most likely cousins to stop who's
to fight each other.
Exactly. Yeah. You tell these people that they come from here. If you ask me, everybody's lied to about where they're actually from. Everybody. So it's not specific crosshairs at anyone Jewish. And as I had to come to learn who Jesus was, historically, what it did is it gave me a tremendous appreciation for the historical Israel, and like a desire to almost like, listen, I'm not even Jewish, but like I feel like clarifying this for y'all because I can see y'all are getting hated on unfairly and unfortunately, but it's partially because y'all don't even understand that y'all need to step out the way of these bullets they're tossing at you from that State Department you love so much, and you need to stop identifying it with, just like the conservatives need to stop doing that with Trump. And the liberals needed to stop doing that with Biden and Obama and just every other pick a name, right? So
they get you fucking mad. They get you invested in a story that's largely built on these psyops. And when you talk about like the state of Israel and their government, a lot of them are objectively not Jewish in terms of their religious beliefs. Like
or their
a lot
last
of them,
name, bro. Or
yeah, like a lot of them are objectively not religiously Jewish. But that won't stop them from, hiding behind that religious identity. And the same is true. Like when you look at Trump's Christian nature, like,
no,
oh, please. Oh, fucking please, 0%. Dude. Right. So like no one has monopoly on that bullshit. Right. It's
exactly.
Just get the people, get the peasants fighting each other over identity politics because the actual masters are up here managing things.
Correct.
And don't look up.
And to me, that only works when everyone's identity is thwarted, because sound identity doesn't have to defend itself. Truth doesn't have to defend itself. It's only when you found out you're Serbian and what that means to you recently, right? Not from your...
Well, I knew I was Serbian, but I went to Serbia recently, and that's why I'm like,
the concept opens up, right? It's not just white. It's now connected to a thing. Yeah. My whole thing is like, Crayola colors are the psyop. Crayola colors are the psyop. Asia is a continent, right? Even though we call it yellow, it's still... Asian countries have a landmass that they all connect to. Africa, even though it's a recent title, is still a landmass. Europe is still a landmass. Black ain't a landmass and white ain't a landmass. What they are is new terms that can have new definitions put into them. So y'all can watch Punky Brewster and y'all can watch Good Times. Y'all can watch Welcome Back, Kotter, and y'all can watch The Jeffersons. And over 50 years, we're going to define to y'all what that means until your own people are clowning on me because I'm not dressing black enough, or I'm too articulate and I'm not speaking black enough, or I don't say nigga enough, so I'm not black enough. You see what I'm saying? It's all these like magnetic cultural buckets. And if you want to demagnetize, you got all these other magnets called, well, what are you then? What do you call yourself then? Or are you controlled? What do you mean thinking for yourself? You need to define something I understand and then make me understand it right quick before I can even let you have another. Yeah. See what I'm saying?
Well, and it's so exacerbated nowadays, especially like with algorithms and social media too. But like when you self-identify very strictly to those labels, first off, like you feel the need to defend that label. And when people, even if they're just kindly asking questions related to some of the premises typically held within that label or that identity group surrounding that label, you automatically feel the need to defend it because you feel that an attack on that label is an attack on your very existence. Because
continue. Don't mean to cut.
No, well, so like with social media algorithms today, because the whole conversation on mainstream media, mainstream alternative media, controlled opposition, I think that is, of course, important. That's why I wanted to talk about it. But the thing that I can't get past today is how much, even us sitting in this room right now who are aware of what's going on in the world, I think we underestimate how much algorithms and what is shown to us on these devices are manipulating our perception of reality. Because, okay, like at least we have the awareness that the algorithms, blue light on the phones, like it's dopamine driving, it's addictive. We have that awareness. And we have the awareness that like the algorithms are used to divide us. And still, like the idea that I pick up this device in my immediate surroundings, everything's peaceful right now. Like there's nothing going on. I'm chilling with my homies right now. Cal's here in the room. Shout out to Cal Callahan from Great Unlearn. We're going to get into some stuff related to him later. Everything's peaceful right now, right? I pull this up. Oh my God, that dude got shot in the head. Oh my God, there's 75 mosques in Dallas, Texas. Radical Islam must be taking over. Oh, I'm going to go research that one a little bit more. Now my algorithm knows that like, oh, he wants more of that content. Now all I see is radical Islam is taking over everywhere. And then I start to form this bias. And like, could that be true in some cases? Absolutely. I don't deny that. But is it true in my immediate surroundings right now? No. And I've now taken that into my psyche, into the waters of my body. And I am holding that belief, that thought, that feeling perpetually. And I'm now projecting that into this reality. When you look into the metaphysics of how this reality might conduct itself, I am then using my vessel as a vehicle for the co-creation of more of that, bringing that which I see on my devices into this reality where it was not present before.
With your attention as currency.
Doing that. Yes.
And I think they've been studying that. I think that effect that you just described very well, I think that is a carefully studied phenomenon that has been carefully crafted and tuned intentionally. And I think that COVID was the first time that we saw it really rolled out on a mass social media level scale with individual targeting, where I'm sure that it does not actually require this totality of thought, but I think that they have learned that if you can get enough people to collectively buy into one of these fake thought forms, one of these made up ideas, then it feels like it's an identity that is just universally true. It feels like a Mandela effect switch has just been flipped for the whole world. And so it happened with Ukraine, it happened with COVID, it happened with all these different psyops, essentially, that if you can just shout the idea loud enough from enough platforms, enough voices, enough feeds, enough streams, enough content, then everyone just sort of collectively buys in all at once without thinking about it. And they turn it into their identity. They turn it into their collective identity, and they will defend it even without knowing what it is. And it becomes very hard to break through that. Mass formation psychosis is actually one of the words that was coined to describe that. And for me, the way that I've tried to defend myself from it is just a little humility. And it's honestly really not that complicated. Just have the humility to realize that I'm not smart enough to unpack this military grade psyop inside of this little device. And I don't know for sure what's real and what's not anymore. And maybe this one's real. Maybe this one's real. Maybe that's fake and lies. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. And just that humility to step back from the ideas as certainty and think whether they're given to you or they're just real information is I don't know. Because if you don't know, suddenly your identity isn't tied to this made up bullshit. My identity is not tied to what I said on my stream last week. My identity is not tied to the idea I think I have about Israel or I have about America or the CIA. It's like, maybe I'm wrong about things. And that's fine, because ultimately, like, you are not your ideas. Your ideas are this moving thought form that you're constantly evolving with, right? And they want to trick you into thinking that you need to know what's going on and you need to stand for what's right and you need to be on the right team and you need to fight against the evil other team always. And so they build the two teams, and every psyop has two teams, and both teams are controlled, and both teams have little nexus points of influence and people giving you information. And it's just like, buy out of all of that shit and just like zoom out and just take it all in, and don't make any decisions for yourself. Like, you don't need to know what's going on to unplug from that matrix, because one thing that's for sure going on is that matrix, and just unplugging from it is like the number one step that everyone can do.
Amen.
Right. And to your point about the co-creation and manifestation, it's one of those like almost like it's like a meta version of the chicken and the egg type thing. The fear of the event created it, or your perception of the potential of the fear and the collective perception of the potential of the fear. Yeah. Because at that point, AI is just a prompt away from real reality beyond just the video. Because if that then becomes viral and then they control what's viral, they also control what's at the top comments of any different comment section, or, which IP addresses are getting shown what information. And so you're talking like rats in a maze of an like AI level quick, rerouting in terms of the signals. Yeah. And I mean, you guys have seen it. You're looking at a video, you scroll down, you scroll back up by accident, your finger hits it and it refreshes, and then it's gone. You're on a whole new timeline.
Yep.
Your future might be different now that you didn't see that video you was about to see on the old timeline.
Fact.
See what I'm saying?
I think that a lot of regular folks don't realize the level at which just advertising targeting is at, let alone like intelligence agency level targeting. But just advertising agencies right now, they can know everything about your home, your whole digital footprint, and target your TV screen specifically because you bought this on Amazon and your wife works at this place and this is your socioeconomic and these are your kids and they know all that shit. And it's AI plugged in. So they target your TV screen, they show you an ad. But they also, so if I buy an ad on your TV screen for my company, I can pay for retargeting if you meet certain criteria. And those criteria that they know go all the way down to the minutia of like, so we targeted that TV screen, but in the room with that TV screen are these 4 phones. And those 4 phones, this one belongs to your child. This is your youngest child. That's who we want to target because we're selling sugary food. And that youngest child, we know that they bought this stuff. They played this game on Roblox. And so that's the phone we're going to target and we're going to send it. We'll send it 30 seconds after the TV ad or 3 minutes. And that is the level at which advertisement targeting happens now, all at AI. And I can walk up to my advertising agent and pay them for that service and just say, blanket, these are my criteria, target all this, and it just goes. And so when you look at like people that actually have nefarious intentions beyond just selling you trash, it gets pretty dark pretty fast with how much they can control your digital reality.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think regular people have some amount of an understanding of that. But like when you actually get into this world where like we interface with those people and those realities and like I've know those prices and those people that do those things, it's like, whoa, dude. Like that's where I zoom out from the screen and just am like, okay, I don't know what the fuck's going on. It might all be fake, but I'm just going to do my best.
Yeah, it is such a paradox too, because I'm both grateful for digital tech. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if it weren't for it. I wouldn't have connected with so many amazing people across the world if it weren't for it. And at the same time, I recognize that it is increasingly, almost exponentially in terms of like the time, becoming very problematic in terms of manipulating our perception of reality. And then us giving data away that allows it to manipulate the perception of reality even more in an even more sophisticated way. Like that is, it's just, yeah, it's such a weird paradox, man. Have you thought about how to approach that?
We're going down this runaway train of technological advancement without getting our souls correct first. And so our whole species, and I think the easiest place to kind of pinpoint the start of this is just the Industrial Revolution, kind of 1800s, 1900s turn there, just because it's an easy starting point in the actual visible technology and the runaway of the sort of corporate structures and the money piling up in these guys' accounts. I think it probably runs way back farther than that. But if you look at like the Industrial Revolution and the robber barons, this is like, leading into the Great Gatsby kind of an era where you get these huge, vast, globalized quantities of money in the accounts of like 6 families that run all the railroads or all the steel or all of the gasoline. And you look at how our souls were so clearly not aligned with good at that moment, but we were running down this train, so to speak, of technological advancement of our society, of our devices, of our very lifestyles. That train has never stopped. You can't go that far down those tracks and then get your soul right and fix everything. That's not how it works.
Yeah,
we're trapped in a runaway train.
And it's all under the premise that this is going to make life better.
Exactly.
And it's like,
no, it's not.
You're right.
Because as you advance those technologies, it's being advanced by people whose souls aren't right. Because the incentive structures are such that people whose souls aren't right rise fastest. Because in a corrupt world, in Larry Fink's Black Rocky world, it's the people that will backstab and blackmail and, thieve and steal and manipulate in order to get to the top. That's incentivized. It's selected for intentionally because to get into the club, they want people that aren't going to rat them out because they're doing the same thing. All these criminals at the top, that's how you get a pedophile network that's running at the highest levels because they're all fucking into it. And so when that is the upper structure of your society and you're going down a technological path of advancement, you're inherently advancing towards the wrong ends. And AI is advancing in the wrong direction. Did everything digital, robotics, drones, it's all advancing in the wrong direction. And like I always remind myself that I'm just one human in a timeline where we're all just going to live through this together. I'm not going to change the world. I'm going to change people around me. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to like play a role, but we're not going to save the world from ourselves. We're going to live out the story that we're all a part of. And it's going to be fucking wild. And it's not going to be great in like a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean that we can't evolve through it, grow through it. Because for example, if you take it down to a microcosm and you imagine a kid at school learning a lesson, a lot of kids have to learn their lessons the hard way. And if you're a teacher or a good parent, you learn from working with kids that if you step in and stop the kid from doing the wrong thing and just tell them the lesson, they actually won't learn it. You can't just get them off the train track and tell them the right way to get on and then put them back in. You do so often just have to let the kid go through that hard experience. And the best thing to do is to actually coach their learning through that bad experience of having done it the wrong way. And we're sort of collectively on a multi-100-year timescale right now, all the adult in the room coaching ourselves through the learning of how did we do this wrong? Why are we doing this wrong right now? And generationally, we're going to learn what we did wrong. This time we went down the technological path. And I don't know if that's going to be like we really rewind to the beginning or if we just kind of like our societal functions are so ingrained in corruption and evil at this point that those are going to have to fall apart and crumble.
It has to be like a bubble that pops at some point, dude.
And so I'm not optimistic that that's going to happen in my lifetime at all. I think that we're pretty locked into a pretty shitty path, but that doesn't mean that good can't shine in those moments.
And that doesn't mean that we have to all participate either.
Bingo.
Like, I don't know what my line will be in terms of like, okay, I'm no longer doing that. I'm going to start going back towards the other direction. But there is a divergence happening both in thought and people who just get it. And when I say people who just get it, I'm not talking about people who identify as based or conservative or like, a part of the resistance of leftists. I'm talking about people who just want to be left alone, that are kind and loving, and who know they don't want to infringe upon or like impose their beliefs upon other people.
People who have unplugged.
Yeah, people who have unplugged, man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's going to be a new economy for that. And when I say economy, I really do mean an attention economy. I really do get this impression that everything has a boomerang, everything has a season. And I think we grew up in the internet was good for you season, like social media was good for you season, because it was their bait sign. They hadn't done the switch yet.
Yep.
I don't know when the switch happened, but I can remember being a part of the first Facebook pilot group in 2005 because I was at college at the time. And
that was when it was available for only collegiate.
Yeah. And then they went high school and then it went for everybody. But 21 years later, and I have no desire to log into Facebook ever again. So that little 2-decade curve, for me, it's been about 5 years, but that 1.5, 2-decade curve is that window. There was a window where we were in our education season. There was a window where you were in your courtship season.
We're in our AI season now.
We're in our AI season.
Real strong.
I know. It's just practice. So it was an Allen Iverson joke.
I thought that's what you were going.
I realized like these aren't basketball people.
Because he said AI,
exactly.
Allen Iverson.
Exactly.
Dude, have you seen those memes where like someone says AI did this? You mean Allen Iverson did what? That's who I know AI is. AI is Allen Iverson.
So I think we're in this window, and I think that window will come a time where I have a lot of friends. I just went to go tag 2 friends of mine who were pilots, aviators. I'm like, where's their handle? Like, I know I'm not typing this wrong. Like, I text them like, hey, what's wrong with your page? You get deleted? No, we deactivated. It was time. We just needed less exposure, and we just needed to focus on what we were doing. And oh my gosh, in the 3 weeks, I've gotten so many books read and so much done. And I'm like, you know what? I salute you. You self-accountable person who don't need social media as much as I do right now. I'll be there. It's like we're all kind of like looking at them from the boat like,
yeah, man.
All right, I'll see you at some point. But I think that that's healthy. And I think that what will happen is this social rebound. I think social media is the fruition of a social rebound against isolationism. Yeah. Everybody being stuck in cubicles and boxes and desks and sterile environments for all of your parents and my parents' upbringing led to a group of people just wanting to like not work in that way at all and figure out how to make this lifestyle thing work. And then I think that will have a season. And if you had to guess, the next season is functional hunting, farming, and how to figure out how to actually survive.
Yeah, man.
On your own, like how your granddad and them did. But I really do see this as a window. And I think that Google is a great example. When Google first came out, it was objectively helpful for you to find what you were looking for. Now, if you want to Google something that is anything regarding
objectively controlled,
exactly. You see what I'm saying?
It's also like with AI answers now. Oh my god, it's impossible to get to the actual source of things.
Anything,
not impossible, but it's much harder.
Well, it's a real skill. It's a very important skill, is to understand how to use it to help you access primary sources and original information, instead of basically to use it as a extension of your brain search into that information space, which won't last forever. But yeah, right now it's like a lot of people are using it at the surface level. And I do a lot in my life of trying to figure out how to break through that surface. And yeah, exactly. Right. Where I have mine prompted up to be like, always share your sources. They have to be cited as clickable links. You always have to say when you're speculating versus when you're citing a source, all those sorts of things. And then that helps me to just dig through, basically go past the AI back into. So now it's like, yeah, I've replaced Google with it because Google is controlled. It's like, how do you even access all this information on the internet when Google is controlled? And then when ChatGPT is actually trying to curtail your thinking. But there are ways to break through that matrix and get into just like, okay, now I've just searched out 50 sources all at once and I can read them for myself and try to come to my own conclusions about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's super helpful.
But it's an interesting runaway train where like, even when you use AI from a, let's say an altruistic perspective or an informed perspective of like, I'm not buying into all that shit, but I'll just use it for the tools that I can use for good as a journalist here. I'm still using tokens, and using tokens is still incentivizing the system. It's still building more data centers. It's still taking more water. It's still taking more electricity, and it's still paying the bills of this runaway bubble that is AI right now. So there's this weird, like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of phase that we're in with this trap, this sort of runaway train that I'm talking about, right?
It's such a tough thing, man. For me, what comes up, Chris, with what you were saying, and this also relates to AI use too, is just, again, going back to using it mindfully, but for the people who are becoming so resistant to using technology, it's tough because you do, like, I don't say you have to, but in order to interface with the rest of the world at all, you kind of have to adopt some of these tools at this point. And it's a really tough thing. But for those who've become so disenfranchised with social media, with the digital platforms, understandably, the problem for those of us who are awake, so to speak, or health, truth, freedom, consciousness seeking, is that Austin's a unique sort of oddball in that there are so many people like us in this area that we're a dime a dozen. But for the rest of the world, you put this down, you look to your immediate environment, your neighborhood, the people around you, and you're like, oh, these people do not fucking get it at all. You feel invalidated, you feel unseen, you feel like, again, no one around you gets it. So then as a sort of pseudo replacement for community to find people who get it, you pick this device back up. That's what you do. You turn back to the device.
It's literally what I did, because I was living in liberal Bellingham, Washington, where there are some really great gems of humans, but it was just this megalithic liberal groupthink in the heart of COVID. And I'm starting to wake up to all these new ideas. And I'm like, I'm not like any of these people. And I'm friends with all of them because I don't like judge people based on their ideas. And I'm going to work with them and I'm hanging out with them. But at the same time, I'm not myself. I'm not like presenting my whole self to them. But it's like the moment I turned on my platform, I found all the best friends I've ever had. And I grow this amazing network of incredible people. And I have thousands of homies all around the world now, because it does connect you to like-minded people in this interesting way, right?
But it's such a weird paradox because, like, unless you're going to be with them in person, it just is keeping you sucked to these.
Yep.
Yeah.
And something's still missing.
Yeah,
it is, but I think that what it's really connecting is your field to their field, your heart to their heart. That's the conduit. And as soon as an airplane ticket or a bus trip is available, then you have that same connection without that conduit. So I guess I hear what you're saying, and I agree. I'm looking at it like, I really do think, though, that this gift curse situation that we're all kind of acknowledging here is maybe 51% gift, 49% curse, just because of how much potential new butterfly effect comes from what Ian just explained. Being in Washington around a bunch of people he was cool with, but couldn't really grow or expand with because he couldn't be himself. And that's everyone on his platform from wherever they live, everyone on your platform, wherever they live, everyone on my platform, no matter where they live. I'm like, man, am I the only one that thinks like this? And then you see somebody and you're like,
And that emotional feeling you get, that is a real universal truth. That's a truth that changes your heart field and your energy. And then, you walk out in the world and maybe it gets dampened a little if you're not resilient. But I agree with you that conduit of the technology to connect, it does connect something greater than just a digital connection.
That's
right?
a really good point.
It connects your human reality to you're not alone.
Yeah.
Correct. And that might just be maybe 5149. I don't know. It just might teeter-totter out the detrimental effect once we can all be accountable and have enough self-control to really temper the time.
I really look at us as a species, as an evolving species that is like, we are an infant with this technology right now. We are just growing. Like, we sort of think of ourselves at the pinnacle of human evolution right now because we're the furthest in our timeline that we know of. But in 5,000 years, we'll be ancient history. And think about how far, if we don't destroy ourselves and have to start over, think about how far the technological advancement of humankind is going to go and how much soul evolution is going to have to accompany that in order for us to not blow ourselves off the map. And so I always remind myself that collectively we are all learning how to live in this type of space, live in these realities that, like, even if you were lizards on some other planet and you invented phones that had the internet, they would all have to learn the same lesson of what happens when a bunch of thinking beings all connect over a digital space like this. Like that, these are universal truths to the technological advancements.
It's true.
And we are all collectively maturing through the social media age. And we've watched how, like, when Facebook first came out, it was like, oh, cool. I have friends now and I can rank them on my MySpace and shit. And then, the whole world realized, like, oh, I can sell things to people on here. Oh, I can control thoughts on here. Oh, I can, like, change the global narrative on here. And now we're all waking up to, like, oh, they're controlling thoughts on here. They're changing the global narrative on here. And 50 years down the line, that'll all be basic kindergarten education, right? But we have to all go through the learning process together right now.
That you upload to your neural cortex because the damage is done already.
Yeah, I don't know if you can count me into that one.
Not right, me neither.
Like, where do I turn 80 and get off the fucking train?
The train becomes made of Legos and thoughts and dreams. And the tracks become NFTs. And so now it doesn't matter.
Most healthcare today operates on an outdated mechanistic model, treating the body like a battlefield rather than a self-healing system. You wait months for an appointment only to receive a rush diagnosis that labels you rather than truly understanding your unique health. Even in holistic health, many practitioners rely on endless lab tests and supplement protocols, addressing symptoms instead of the root cause. And the result? Another prescription or supplement regimen that merely suppresses or masks symptoms rather than facilitating true healing, whether the imbalance was physical, emotional, energetic, or a mix of all three. And that's why Dr. Tom Cowan co-founded the New Biology Clinic, to offer something radically different. As one of the most respected natural health doctors in the world, Dr. Cowan has spent decades challenging conventional medicine and advancing a deeper understanding of human biology, water, and natural health. His work isn't just about rejecting the mainstream, it's about offering a more truthful, biologically coherent approach for healing. The New Biology Clinic recognizes that health isn't about fighting disease, it's about restoring balance. You're not a diagnosis, you're an individual with a unique story, and healing should honor that. With virtual consultations available worldwide, the clinic offers a flat-rate monthly membership that gives you direct access to practitioners who take the time to actually listen. Members also get exclusive health live streams, a resource library, and live sessions covering everything from biofield tuning and breathwork to movement and meditation, all designed to support whole body healing. And if you're not ready for a membership, you can book a one-time appointment, sign up for an enrichment-only membership for the healing modalities alone, or schedule a free connection session with one of the care team members to see how the New Biology Clinic can help in your specific situation. This isn't about keeping you dependent on doctors. It's about making you sovereign over your health. Head to newbiologyclinic.com and use code THEWAYFORWARD, and that's spelled The Way, F-O-R-W-A-R-D, for $50 off account activation, or just head to the show notes for more info. If you're a member of The Way Forward, email hello@thewayforward.com for $150 off. Your body already knows how to heal, and New Biology Clinic helps you remember. I want to revisit the controlled opposition conversation one more time, just because we were talking off air, and it's like, this term is thrown around so much that it has lost all meaning, kind of like anti-Semite, kind of like a variety of other terms, anti-vaxxer. And I want to like define that term, what that actually means, and just to have a little bit more of the conversation related to the actual definition of that term. So I don't know if you want to, any of you pick up wherever you want off of that.
So I want to hear what you got to say, but I just want to start by saying I define control opposition very different from how I've mostly heard it defined as I've been online. And it starts to get a little frustrating because if you ask me, the concept of control opposition just at face value comes from social concepts like the Matrix and like the TVs and movies that we watch that highlight, the military, the government, the CIA or whatever. Controlled opposition in the Matrix was nobody but Agent Smith was the actual controlled opposition. Now, Neo had plenty of opposition in that movie, and a lot of it was control. But the concept of controlled opposition to me has this very weaponized kind of like connotation when if you ask me, the truth is anybody is potential to be controlled opposition at any time based on several factors. How clued in you are or not about how the world works, the information that you receive being valid or not, the person sending that information having good motives or not, your own ego, or what you were mentioning earlier, just the general awareness, the implicit understanding that if you continue to talk about things, you will lose access to things or locations or places or people. That is a form of self-controlling the opposition, but none of it requires like, hi, I'm here to apply for the control opposition. Okay, great. Fill your application out. Are you good at lying? Are you good at deceiving? Okay, step right in. We're interviewing for a control opposition. It's not like that for the most part. Now, do I think that exists? 1,000%. And do I think that there's an increasing need to centralize that as the conversation seems to be very uncontrollable? Yes, I do. But I truly think that when, everybody, I thought you was controlled opposition for a season. Why? Not because I didn't know you at the time, but because I opened my phone and the first post was Alec Zek. Forever? No, probably for like 2 weeks of my life. But 14 days, a whole entire fortnight is enough for me to draw an emotional conclusion. Like, well, who is this dude? All right, every time I open my phone, they're always putting him in front of me. Like, who does he work for? Oh, he's in the military. Oh, okay.
Right. He went to West Point. He majored in systems engineering.
Points, right? 2 data points. Never mind, he played handball. He picked a major, y'all. Oh, don't pick a major because then you're tied to it forever. But the point is, it was me saying, you know what? You can't judge no book by its cover. You don't really know anybody until you know them. You don't even know yourself half the time or your significant other half the time, and you spend a decade with them. So you don't really know anybody until you know them, which is why I spent time with just getting to know Alec as a person and why I'm here today to get to know Ian as a person, not just the figure online with the algorithm. Who is Ian? I can get to know Ian because I'm sitting right next to Ian. My field is in Ian's field. And Ian.
Also hilarious that, by the way, the camera definitely distorts sizes. Ian's 6'6" and Chris is 6'7".
Yeah. So everybody else would be sitting like this and they'd be like on the chair between us. It's Hollywood magic, all the right angles. But, my approach was anybody is anybody until you know them, until you can actually use your discernment. And as I'm talking to Ian, I'm just hearing his backstory, is filling in perspective that only he can give about his own backstory that none of us know. Oh, he's a teacher? Oh, cool. Like, I thought you were in like controlled opposition school this whole time. I'm like, okay. Like, oh, you do your own edits? I thought you had a whole team of people. Oh, okay. And, all these things. I don't take ads. I do my own edits. All these things start to sound silly now when you're like, but my point is, control opposition is it's like an adjective. It's not a noun. See what I'm saying? It's like the concept is an adjective, a temporary or chronic adjective that somebody's dealing with over time till they wisen up or they gain a moral gut or something on it.
That's a good point. I'm going to jump off of that. Controlled opposition as an adjective flips the script from you're defined as this thing to you're acting in a way. And when you look at someone in your screen today, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever it is, mostly the people that we're talking about in these spheres are presenting as an independent voice. They're presenting as an independent thinker that's sharing their stuff online, whether they are just a small account on X, or they're like, I got a big platform, but I still present that way. Or even if you're like Ben Shapiro and you work for the Daily Wire, but he still presents as like part of this new media environment where he's sharing his opinion, right? That's what he presents as. And so in a lot of ways, the adjective controlled opposition starts to apply the moment that you are not actually what you present as. Because we all present as our independent, organic, authentic thoughts, but a lot of people in the space are actually quietly giving an ad without having to disclose it. That's happening a lot in the gambling ads these days. It happens in a lot of different advertising spaces, but then there's one step further out of it. Like, actually, you have an ideological slant that's given to you by, you know, the guy that's your boss, or by the person that paid you money, or by the person that has blackmail on you, whatever it is. And so there's like different degrees of steps away from your authentic voice that you can be taken, where you present as though it's still your authentic voice, but you're actually sharing something else deceptively. And you bring up this great spectrum of reasons why that might happen. And that's what's been most interesting for me, as I've gotten into the industry and met a lot of people and really examined like what's going on for some of these people, and also learned about intelligence agencies and how you actually do this in a targeted way if you wanted to target it. Because there's a whole network of types of like controlled opposition that can happen where you're actually doing it to yourself on accident. And this is the kind of thing that I've done on accident before too, where I'm trying to report on a story and I get a piece of information, I don't fully vet it, and I accidentally report the exact government narrative thinking I know what's going on. And that's very minor. That's just a mistake. But in a way, you're starting to step into this space where it's like, if I actually knew what was going on, my authentic voice wouldn't be that. My authentic voice would say something else. But then the big one that I think happens the most online that I do think is controlled opposition in the similar way is access journalism. And this is something that all journalists know about when you go to journalism school, is if you can get access to the White House as Fox News, if Fox News has access to the White House, that is, their whole business is made. That's their business model. And if anyone does anything to compromise their access to the White House by criticizing Trump too hard, or by going in on the Epstein stuff too much, or whatever it is, they just cost that company billions of dollars, right? They cost their access to the most important point of information in the entire nation. But that same thing is true. It's even more true in the influencer space. And when you watched Bindergate around the Epstein binders happen, those influencers that got invited to that fucking table to be given those binders, they were chosen because of who they were. And I wasn't invited because of who I am. And if you wanted to pick the people that are actually the most on the Epstein story, it wouldn't have been those people. It would have been like Whitney Webb, right?
Dude, right? 100%.
Like Whitney Webb would have been at that table. Nick Bryant would have been at that table. Ryan Dawson would have been at that table. Like, that's the kind of thing.
Derek Bros would have been at that table.
Bingo, exactly, right? Those are the kind of people you would actually invite, but you didn't invite them because they're not controlled opposition, because they don't change their opinions to give other narratives. But the people that did get those binders, then you start to have questions, because then if you're one of those people that gets invited to that place, like for example, I got invited on Tim Pool's podcast as my first big podcast, and I loved it. Great time, great people, I thought at the time. But then later on, like the next year, a story lands in my lap that the Daily Wire's finances are collapsing, and that actually Tim Pool was looking to sell his business to the Daily Wire quietly in the background. And everybody had been noticing that Tim was firing all sorts of people, and people was throwing these Zionist accusations about him. There's always been a lot of suspicion around Tim Pool. And I get a piece of information in that story that he's looking to sell his business to the Daily Wire, and that possibly, allegedly, some of those firings were sort of sanitizing the business model to try to make it more, appealing for an acquisition. And then I have to think, if I report this piece of information, I probably will never have access to go on Tim Pool's show again, because Tim is going to hate me. And he did. He got really mad. And actually, I got it a little wrong when I first reported. I had to correct myself. But if I don't report on that, then I've just controlled my own, I've just done my own controlled opposition on myself, because I wanted access to all that stuff. And so you have to learn this really intricate thing in this industry of how do you tell the truth without making it personal, and just let the chips fall where they may and accept the consequences of telling the truth. And that's a very hard thing to do. And most people don't learn it. And most people instead play weird drama games and sort of keep secrets and like don't like
it's a spectrum of principle and pragmatism.
Bingo.
You know what I mean?
Such a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's like how strictly do you adhere to your own principles versus like, I'm going to set aside a little bit of my principles right now to do what's quote unquote pragmatic based on do the ends justify the means for me to get access to X, Y, and Z.
And I would argue that in that situation, suppose you get some big story and your principles say, maybe I should report on this, but pragmatically, maybe I shouldn't. If you present as a person that makes that calculation that way and you just tell your audience, like, I'm a reporter, but I get information I don't share. Like I don't like to talk about the Catholic Church because I'm Catholic. Then to me, it's like, cool. You're straightforward with me about your line there. And that's not the same thing as if you're like, I follow every fucking story. I expose all the corruption always. No one can control me. But you're like sitting on this story that you're not talking about because of that. Like, so that these are sort of spaces where it's this much more subtle type of controlled opposition because it flows through the entire social media industry and every other industry quietly and sort of subliminally, and there's no one has to pull any strings. No one has to pay any money. No one has to do any blackmailing. Everyone just does it to themselves. And the power is already networked up where it is. And so those PowerPoints, those big podcasts, the White House, the government, those nexus points of information and access, they already control the access points. So they kind of control what's acceptable to be talked about, right? And so like if I want to go back on Joe Rogan's show ever in the future, and I love Joe. Joe seems great. I don't think Joe actually like thinks this way. I think Joe generally just has people on that he wants to have. But some people would think like, oh, you have to like make sure you talk in a way that he'll invite you back on, or like make sure you do. It's like, or you could just fucking do your thing and not think about it because Joe's just a dude trying to run a podcast just like you. And who cares? Whatever, dude. Because ultimately, anyone in this industry that falls away from their authenticity and into a more and more controlled space, they only degrade their own value. Like your authenticity is your greatest currency in this space. And I think that we've all seen, several folks on the internet over the last couple of years who actually the best example is Jordan Peterson. Like one of the least controversial examples is Jordan Peterson, who built this incredible platform and shared all this incredible information that really woke a lot of young people up, especially young men. And for a long time, it was like, this dude is great. And then something happened around the time when he signed a deal with the Daily Wire. And everyone just started to notice that this dude's integrity and authenticity wasn't quite what it was. And I think that one of the key nexus points in that downfall that he did to himself was the Jubilee, where it was 20 atheists against one Christian. And he's sitting at the table and he's like, I don't have to tell you if I'm a Christian or not. Like, what do you mean am I a Christian? And the kid just like slaps him in the face with like, oh, I thought I was in a debate with a Christian. Am I not? Are you not a Christian? Do you believe the Bible? And he just like takes a drink of his water like, oh, I'm at the wrong table. It's like the most inauthentic thing you could ever see, right? Because somewhere he'd made enough deals where he was like, now he was going on shows and making presentations and saying things on camera that weren't what he really believed.
Dude.
Right.
And even aside from like making deals that lead to you being controlled opposition, there's also the conversation surrounding like, are you communicating from a place of integrity, like in how you literally live your life outside of business deals too? Like if you profess to be about, I don't know, non-duality, for example, I'm just throwing literally any example out there, insert anything in place of non-duality. Are you actually living in a way that reflects like what non-duality is proposed to be about, right? And then the other side of that too is like, if you are communicating from an incoherent place, adding more chaos to the world. And first off, like we're all human beings. Everyone's not going to be perfect. Any individual is not going to be perfect when it comes to this. But if you're consistently communicating in such a way that you're adding more chaos to the world, I would almost consider that controlled opposition.
I agree. Unless you are like upfront about the fact that like my account's all about comedy and slop and fucking just chaos. Like I'm an anarchist, whatever. Then cool. Like do your thing. But in general, most people, especially like, because there's entertainment out there, there's whole platforms that are built on like cool edits just to like watch cool edits. But like in the information space, generally the understanding is that we're all here to share true information and to try to understand information. And so you're totally right that people that like the best example is people that just chase clicks at all costs, and will share any story that will get them clicks, regardless of what it is, what it means, whether it's true. That is obvious. Like that's 100%.
Do you know what I can't stand related to that is I've had friends do this, so I'm not talking shit on them directly, but the people who make reels where all it is them pointing at like someone else's video. It's like,
bro,
tell me your thoughts in the comments.
Do something.
It's like, so wait, you want to show somebody else's video and then get all your followers
just your
to
face
talk
on it
about it.
The crazy thing is they get a lot of views from it, and it works,
It
man.
works.
But back to your first point of communicating a thing that you don't actually live by. There's a million versions of that right now online. The biggest one, I think, is religion. The biggest one is this Christian push, right? And the most obvious one is the OnlyFans girls that are getting baptized, because it's like, well, I fucked 100 dudes. What else can I do? I guess I'll turn Christian. And it's like, bitch, please.
Right.
Go get baptized in private and live the life in private and actually be by it.
And maybe like 5 to 10 years from now, put out a book of how like I had to get out of the digital space and turn my life
do
around.
Something real about it, right? But it's like jumping on it, like of all things to make into a bandwagon to jump on for clicks and views, religion, like get out of here, dude. That is the most personal, private, like important spiritual reality that you should not be sacrileging. And so the same type of sacrilege happens in all sorts of like health and fitness, like all those things. But the most obvious one to look at is the religion space, and who's getting clicks and views off of religion that don't actually practice what they preach. And that happens in every direction on all religions.
In the highest office in many ways.
Let's start at the top and go down.
Bingo. Yeah. Yeah. And so, for example, I'll occasionally mention like my take on religion and spirituality in passing, and I'll have people in my comments that'll be like, oh my God, Ian, I want to hear your take on that. It sounds like a really interesting, nuanced view. You should do a whole show about it. It's like, no, dude, I'm not trying to like tell people how to think about the Bible or tell people how to think about religion. Like, I'm not trying to be a preacher here. That's a journey. And I actually went through this a little bit on my show the other day of like, the point in my view is that religion is an understanding you have to build on your own journey. And if you are told the truth, then you have just skipped the journey and become controlled by whoever told you the truth. And so if I were to sit down and tell you how to think about religion, that would actually defeat the purpose of you having the journey of spiritual understanding for yourself. So I'm actually not going to do that show, and you should just do that show for yourself
in your own quiet time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
The reason I wanted to jump in there is because you're speaking directly to his journey. And that's why I say he's one of the most well-read, well-researched people I know with respect to the Bible and Christianity, because that's quite literally what he has done.
Right. It's what you got to do. And it doesn't have to be books, but books are a big part of it. Like the history is a big part of it, but also like our physical reality today is a big part of it. Your spiritual reality within yourself is a big part of it. Like your awareness, like, so and those are all just things that I think we're all waking up to. And a lot of people want to take shortcuts. A lot of people want to have an influencer to follow down the path. A lot of people want this easy road, but like my favorite quote from a horrible person is Lil Wayne, who said, "I don't want it to be easy. I want it to be worth it." And it's like, that says so much in life to me. And I always think about that quote when I used to teach that to all my kids of like, if you get the easy path, you don't get the worth it part. You don't get what it was supposed to do.
Shout out to Wheezy F. Baby,
yeah,
man.
for real.
Yeah. Weezerton F : baby.
Wheezy F baby, please say the baby.
Please say the baby part.
So I've heard you say, you actually put out a list of like the things that you think are the most important things that I want to say millennials have experienced. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Over their lifetime. And you had Charlie Kirk pretty high up there, higher than some of the other things.
Might have even been higher than 9/11 actually.
What makes you say that? I put out Janet Jackson nipple slip at halftime of the Super Bowl.
The sun never looks so brown and delicious. I mean,
I'm just playing.
A close second.
Or like when the star-studded Miami Heat with Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron lost to Dirk Nowitzki in the Mavs.
The Chris Brown slap at the Oscars, very high. No, I mean, I think it's apples and oranges once you get up to like the most impactful events in human history or in our lifetimes, for sure. And 9/11 is obviously right up at the top. But Charlie Kirk's murder, right at the moment, I think it hit a lot of people in a way that they weren't expecting, myself included, of like, wait, why does this like matter so much to me right now? I was critical of him. Like I was totally on the opposite team of Charlie his whole life. But as the investigation has progressed and we've realized, I mean, my understanding of it all, within a couple of days there, I was starting to key in on this is something much bigger. And there's something like, because when you have a lone gunman patsy narrative around a gigantic political assassination, you have two options. And you really do just have two options. Either that's the truth and it is just one guy on his own, or it's a fucking massive conspiracy. Because in order to make something bigger than that look like a patsy, like a lone gunman, you need a massive conspiracy. And we know that from history. And so the moment that we started to get enough clues, which was immediately that this wasn't a lone gunman, it's a big conspiracy. And once you realize, like, you start to do the math on who might be behind that, why might that be happening, who could pull that off, and now months down the line, and we see all of the media and psyop madness around trying to shut people up and stop asking questions and just accept this narrative, more and more and more it solidifies in my mind to his specific moment in time, his node, his nexus in the global conversation, literally the turning point, the name of his organization, at the heart of this Israel-America conversation, at the heart of the old versus young conversation of where are we going?
Yeah, also at the heart of like much of the freedom movement believing that Trump and his administration is on the side of truth and freedom.
Bingo.
Because what we've seen both with, it's not like Trump is coming out speaking out against the FBI and their investigation into it. If anything, all signs point to he's directly in line with it. And it's very obvious now that Kash Patel, Dan
Bongino,
boing,
oh,
boing,
man.
boing, Gina.
Like, it's very obvious now that they are not on the side of truth and freedom. So it sort of calls into question the idea that Trump is fighting the deep state or anything like this, instead of just actually being a part of the deep state or a part of the agenda that is leading people in decentralization of power, that is leading the destruction of the middle class and all the things, right?
And when you overlay that over the Epstein conversation at the same time and the Israel-US relationship at the same time, which, to harken back to something we've been talking about way earlier, is these truths that everyone accepted, so no one questioned, that were so ingrained, one of these universal truths that's built on like a media-based understanding, that once it cracks open enough, everyone starts to like come up for air and be like, wait, what the fuck? Yeah. What is going on here? Who even came up with this idea? Like, that is cracking open just enough. And then Charlie Kirk gets shot. And suddenly, I mean, and I had a really controversial tweet early on where I just said, like, it's day 2 or something, and already the internet has found the most likely culprit is Israel. And the wording was intentional to say, like, the internet, meaning collectively, the conversation already right away was like, oh shit, did Israel just do this? Whether that's true or not, the fact that people are waking up to asking that question, and the fact that, like, the way it's played out has played out that way, is like, that is a crazy crack in the matrix that I mean, I don't want to like denigrate Charlie's work and legacy, but you could have had Charlie Kirk be murdered at a different point in a different time, and it wouldn't have been the same level of global impact. But because it happened right there, right then, at that like, it's almost like God put that piece of the timeline there, because that was the straw that was going to crack the whole thing open, because everyone was starting to ask these questions, and because the young people were asking it, and they're the ones looking up to Charlie, and they're the ones going to Turning Point and asking these questions. And then that is the nexus point that shatters it all. And right now, with the question of Epstein, the files on the desk, so to speak, and everyone's cracking open this conversation, and we're all looking up at Trump, at this like apparent savior of that narrative of like, we're going to break this deep state, and everyone's suddenly like, the deep state was a fucking conspiracy theory 5 years ago, right? And so I think there's this massive acceleration, not just towards who killed Charlie, although I think that's important, and not just towards the Israel-America conversation, but towards the concept of the controllers and the controlled itself, like to the whole construct of the fake ass matrix that we live in.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking up at that, and everyone has this glaring example on full display of something's not right about the way this is being handled. And I think that because Trump's administration is in power while it's being handled this way, it is just self-evident, with no one explaining it, that there is no logical explanation for Trump's people not to have every invested interest in getting to the exact true bottom of this, because Charlie Kirk personally got Trump elected. Charlie Kirk was their boy. Charlie Kirk had direct White House access. He could walk in there and stop a war with Iran, which he did when he was alive. And so when you look at how the Trump administration is handling this investigation and just trying to wipe it all away and forget all about it, it's self-evident that this is not the relationship we're told it is. This is something else on top and all the rest of us on bottom. And Charlie was in this weird place in between where he seems to have been a useful tool to that system that in some way expired and needed to be neutralized, and he was gone.
And the way in which they did it, right? Because they could have neutralized him in his sleep in a car accident. The way in which they did it
Bingo.
to me was to send a message to any other individual, even remotely close to sniffing in the same fart direction as Charlie Kirk.
It was loud and it was
clear.
very much heard by everyone in the industry.
Paul Revere style. I heard around the world as.
I mean, shit, dude, even as me, as someone who goes and speaks at events like way smaller than what Charlie's doing, I was starting to question like, man, shit, dude, should I like be a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, I want to hear your thoughts on this because I was originally going to do a podcast and then I just decided I'm giving it way too much attention between, I forget the guy's name on Twitter, but you made a video about him recently and about how he shot himself in the foot. He's an Army ex-Green Beret, I believe.
Oh, the
blonde dude.
Gary from Paramount Tactical.
Paramount Tactical.
So I was going to do a joint conversation with him and then the other guy who goes by Genghis Khan on Twitter, who is an ex-Australian sniper, to get to the bottom of it, because the Genghis Khan account, no, he does not give a shit. And he has a lot of compelling information,
I like
man.
him. Yeah, he's cool.
I really like him. And he does not give a shit. He'll go after anyone.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of compelling information that this whole thing is staged and that Charlie was never actually killed, at least not right there and then. Like maybe he's neutralized after the fact. Maybe he's on some island somewhere. I don't know. And then Gary is, of the mindset that it was actually a 30-06, which is absolutely insane to me. Absolutely insane. But I decided that, okay, I'm just not going to do this. I'm getting too wrapped up in this. I don't even want any business with this. I'm going to focus on coherence and all the consciousness conversations that I typically have.
Well, there's an important thing, and I've thought about this a lot too, because I've been invited on to several shows to sort of like debate the evidence. And podcasts are the wrong place to hash this out, because the nature of a podcast is, where is the evidence? We can't share it. Like, we don't have a screen to put it up on. So the whole point is that the evidence is debated and you need to be examining it carefully. And so actually the right way to go about it is to make a detailed show with the evidence on screen, explaining your take on the evidence. And then the other guy, if he wants, he can make a show debunking your take on the evidence or sharing whatever other evidence. That's a way more effective way to go about it. But some people are trying to turn it into a podcast format discussion, which is very interesting when you're freely talking through ideas in a non-adversarial way, whether the right ideas or just like theories or whatever. Like, that's interesting, I think. But when you're trying to debate it in a format where evidence can't be examined, it actually serves the opposite purpose, because it just like turns into an argument with no point, and it just becomes rhetorical technique is what wins instead of evidence-based technique, right?
Who's more bullish and who can cut the other person off better?
Yeah. And then, so it's like when you step back from that and you look at actually like the show-based evidence, it's like, oh, well, Gary's like inviting homie's son on to try to debunk him. And then the son is like accidentally debunking Gary on his own show. And it's like stuff like that. That's just like, oh, it's too good. It's such gold.
Where are you at with it all right now, though? Like in terms of the evidence?
I think personally
Yeah.
that the most likely scenario is actually a shaped charge in the microphone designed to look like a chest shot. And the evidence is being played out right now on a number of podcasts. Baron Coleman's a big one. Candace Owens is starting to talk about it. She actually shared some of the critical evidence. And the very brief rundown of that is, when you watch the video back, the shirt is in front of his face within 1/30th of a second, 2 frames of a 160 video before the wound appears. The shirt is way up here. There's stuff puffing out in a shirt in the back. And then obviously a 30-06 can't cause that damage. We have hundreds of rounds shot into all sorts of things, from bones to concrete. Valhalla shot through steel. Frangible rounds have been tested as well. No one's gotten it to stop at anything. So like, the bullet is not what happened. But more and more, I'm actually suspecting no bullet entered Charlie Kirk, because John Bray presented this very complex theory, or rather complete theory, where a shaped charge in the microphone, similar to the pagers and the walkie-talkies,
used against Hezbollah by Israel.
Exactly.
Right?
That could very much create what would look just like a chest shot. Hit him in the chest. Nothing would happen except that something went wrong and accidentally a piece of shrapnel hit him in the neck. It's hard because you can't show that blood flow on YouTube anymore. But if you examine that blood flow really carefully, there is a little angular kind of shape that looks like a piece of shrapnel that falls out ahead of that blood flow. Then we find shrapnel in the car where he was taken away that looks like black plastic shrapnel. We're finding more and more evidence of shrapnel in the footage. A thing falls behind Charlie in the footage like 1 second after he's hit. So I'm starting to think that a shaped charge designed to look like a chest shot is more likely. And the critical node of information for me that really gets me thinking about that, aside from the evidence of what I see looking like that, is why the fuck did they plant a Mauser 30-06 rifle as the gun for the patsy link if he's getting hit in the neck? You would never in a million years design it that way. And so the fact that the gun was planted to Tyler Robinson, because that gun perfectly ties it to Tyler Robinson. It's his like heirloom rifle that could only be his. But that should have, if you had shot him in the chest, that would have all worked out great. No one would ask any questions. Like, we would not be here. No one would be having this conversation if he'd been shot in the chest. And so the neck wound implies that it wasn't a 30-06. It kind of implies that it wasn't a rifle round at all, because even a smaller rifle round would almost certainly go through. And so then it starts to like, oh, things start to link up, because if it had been a hole in his chest on his white shirt, he's bleeding through his perfectly new white shirt. There's a rifle planted over there. There's a kid that owned the rifle. It all like lines right up. That is the kind of thing that is an operation that you would plan and plant. And the fact that once the neck wound hits, and then the way they evacuate him, the way that the media starts to control everything, that we have missing camera footage from the hospital. Once you tease that out of like, okay, if that's what happened, and then we saw all the stuff we saw, that starts to make a lot of sense why we're getting weird autopsy information released, and then they're changing the autopsy information and they're releasing it through these weird channels that are like not debunkable because it's like hearsay from podcasters, but it is officially TPUSA giving it to them. It's like, oh, shit is making so much more sense, because they were perfectly happy to have us all talking about bullet this, bullet that, rooftop this, rooftop. Who cares what other fucking bullet narrative you were looking into? But the moment people started talking about other means of death and these other theories, it's just like a fucking firestorm starts going after Candace Owens. Nick Fuentes starts burning his reputation to the ground to suggest all sorts of like Fed slop theories. And suddenly like all hell has opened up and the demons are coming out. And I cannot help but suspect that it's because whatever you do, don't talk about not a bullet, because it doesn't look like a bullet. The evidence doesn't line up with a bullet. It lines way more up with some sort of charge in the microphone.
Do you think there's any room for Genghis Khan and other people's idea?
I certainly do. Yeah. Yes. I think that there's actually, so the evidence has not been fully brought to the surface yet, because there are photographs from that day that were not released, but have been circulated amongst journalists that it's not mine to share, but I've seen them. And there is potential evidence of a squib having been on his body at some point. And if you're not familiar, a squib is a blood pack you use in Hollywood to simulate a gunshot. You can look them up on YouTube. They're really interesting. And there is evidence of a squib having been planted on his body, not actually on his neck so much, but near his chest region, implying that maybe you would have had a squib set up to like burst on his chest. And I'm very much like, let's suppose, I always think of it in like, if true, then what? And so if that photographic evidence does come out and it gets really examined by experts, and it's like that 100% looks like what a squib would look like a little patch there, a little charge, then that would mean that someone had convinced Charlie to go with a Butler style fake, like you got shot, but you survived. And so then you'd have to think through, like, how would you convince Charlie to do that? And in my mind, you would tell him, you're going to be president. Like, we're going to make you president, but we need to get you over the line. And this is the kind of thing that's going to like build your legacy, build like the ability to make the difference you need to make, right? If they talked him into something like that, maybe, I mean, people go back and forth, because pretty quickly you're saying that Charlie was willing to lie to everyone about something so egregious. Maybe. I think that if a version of that's true, what probably happened was someone talked him into that, and then someone slid in the middle and actually killed him in the middle of it. Wow. And suddenly, and so these are pure theorizings, and I don't think this is the most likely. I just think it's a plausibility that should be explored. But if that's true, you have such a complex thing to unpack that will almost certainly never be fully proved. But it would start to explain why, like, if it's just the assassination, you have a lot of people at Turning Point that are being way more suspicious than they should be, because you're not going to tell like Mikey McCoy that Charlie's going to get killed. Like, you're not going to involve all these other people in just, blowing the dude up. But if there was a plot to do some sort of fake shooting, you might have other people involved in that obviously they wouldn't know that there's a real killing here. So it starts to like, I could see that starting to explain some of the diverse weirdness that's coming from multiple camps that doesn't all line up because they could never talk. Like if you were involved in a squib thing and then Charlie actually died, for all those people know, they accidentally killed him when the squib went wrong, right? So there's all sorts of complexity to that conversation, which I'm very willing to talk about and I very much am watching. But I don't really dig it too hard on my own stuff because I don't think we're ever going to be able to prove it. Right. And I would way rather focus on the actual method of what caused the shirt to get up to here before the wound appeared.
And also the aftermath. Because like, so I could have been completely incorrect. I was just giving my like opinion. I'm not a ballistics expert or anything, but I saw people on Instagram and elsewhere immediately asserting, not speculating, asserting that it was all staged and all faked. No one died. And then I just came on and said, hey, here's why I think he actually did die in this case. And I could be completely wrong. But the point that I'm getting at here is like, I'm thinking that in either case, whether he did or did not die, the perception of the masses in that moment is going to lead to a variety of things based on him dying. That's what they saw. Like whether it was staged or real is not really all that relevant to me because it's the perception of the masses and then the aftermath of that is what matters most. How is this going to be used to fuel more division?
And we've watched to make more money, to consolidate more power and to put them on a platform to take the tent and memorialize, to put the fucking microphone in a glass case and turn him into this messiah figure. Do it for, they literally had a slogan, a political slogan prepared, do it for Charlie. And they were going to get Vance into the White House with the do it for Charlie campaign. And it's like, that is so fucking evil. And I'm not saying for sure that the people in that camp in our government were in on it, but it's looking pretty suspicious.
It is
at this point. It like straight up is like Erica is looking suspicious at this point because Erica has been caught in multiple direct, abject lies that his wife should never have told. Yeah. Like his wife should have known better than to say those things. And now they've made the mistake of putting her in charge of the company and doing the exact opposite of all of Charlie's last wishes that are in writing, that we have in text messages and writing. Like he asked for a Doge to audit, like a Doge style audit of TPUSA's finances, immediately canceled. Not going to happen. After his death, he said explicitly that he was deciding to leave the pro-Israel cause, right? He was getting pressure from donors. I have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. He texted that to Jewish donors, to his like, that's not a joke. That's a very serious thing to text to those people. That's a multi-million-dollar text to send, right? And first off, all of those people let Candace just hang while she had the evidence, but hadn't yet presented it and was saying that that was what he was doing. And they were all like Jewish people were coming out of nowhere. Josh Hammer's on TV saying, that's a lie. That's a lie. Erica is totally silent. The people on that text thread, totally silent. But now we know it's a fact that that's what he was doing. And now that Erica is the CEO, that's 100% not what they're doing. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't be his star-crossed lover, perfect wife, like Christian wife, upholding his legacy. And you're only leaving your kids every day to go run his company as the CEO because you love him so much and want to like uphold his legacy. And then also do the opposite of everything that he said in his last months of life. That is the most sketchy, fucked up thing ever. So naturally, everyone's looking into her background and it's really sketchy. So I don't know the truth of what all the stuff around it is, but I know very well at this point that the mainstream narrative is a lie, right from the very first facts we were given, from the very first evidence they released. And the fact that that is a lie just opens so many doors in people's minds. And I would encourage people to look into it for themselves and come to their own conclusions. Because someone like me, I can make mistakes. I can get too deep into the rabbit hole. I can, I have my own ideas. You should come up with your own. But like, I think that's why I think it's one of the biggest breaking points, because everyone's ready for the narrative to be shattered. A lot of people, it's already shattered, and it's shattering right at this nexus point of the Epstein Files, the Israel relationship, the Trump administration, and like the uniparty deep state. Where's the money flowing? All these things. And a lot of people saw Charlie and Turning Point as the groundswell of authentic young voices. This is an authentic organization, and that could not be further from the truth. It is just a donor funded construct.
AstroTurf. Yeah. AstroTurf to the nth degree. Man, I want to revisit one more thing regarding JD Vance. Have you explored JD Vance's connections to Peter Thiel?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think Whitney Webb has done a really good job with that.
Whitney Webb, Derek Bros, all those hardcore motherfuckers that really get the good journalism going.
Shout out to my voluntarist friends there. I've also self-identify. Again, I don't attach to labels, but the political perspective that I have, voluntarism makes the most sense because it sticks to principles. Anyway.
No, they've been on it for a minute, and almost all of my knowledge about that topic basically comes from them having trailblazed the reporting, which is not wildly complex reporting. You just have to look at JD Vance's history and read. And you learn that JD Vance, his entire political career was ideated and funded by Peter Thiel directly. But even before his political career, he was at Yale and he saw a speech by Peter Thiel, in his own words, and decided to change paths and get into tech and finance. And so then he moves and he somehow is just a random Yale student that then Peter Thiel's yeah, I'll fucking get you a job. No problem. And Peter Thiel gets him his first job, and then he funds his first fund, and then he funds his second fund, and then he funds his first Senate race, and then he funds this and that. And along the way, as he's going from junior senator to fucking vice president of the United States, someone writes his book for him. It's not him, but they're very, very protective of the ghostwritten narrative there on that book. Journalists have tried to get to who really wrote his book. No one can figure it out. It's not him. And then that book gets picked up for a fucking Netflix documentary the year before everyone needs to know who JD Vance is. Come on. Right. And then Trump is asking at his donors dinner, who should he elect for vice president? And everyone had all their thoughts. No one thought it was going to be Vance, because why would it have been Vance? Except that then all the technocrats at that dinner, and as Trump is asking, all those technocrats are you should pick JD Vance. And I'm sure that Trump just on his own thought, oh, that's a great idea. This fucker who literally hated me 4 years ago, who said that he would never be on my team.
It's hilarious.
His eyeliner stronger than Melania's. Yeah, I'm seconding what you're saying.
Second to hear what you said there.
What did you say?
His eyeliner stronger than Melania's.
His eyeliner is hella strong.
Go hard in the paint, bro. Got that waterproof.
It goes hard on the couch.
It goes hard on the couch. So you say this. So regarding JD Vance, right? So for me, I had been emotionally divested from everything political pretty much since 08, 09, somewhere around then.
Smart man.
My parents were never super huge into politics, but we were raised Black Christian conservatives. So we were the anomaly kind of at the time in the 90s and early 2000s. And I think I voted Bush when I could vote. And then I voted Obama just because history or whatever, all my friends would have beat me up if I didn't. But it was whatever, I didn't feel that strongly about it. Sometime between Obama's second run and today, I figured out, okay, you got it. This is not what we're being told. And so when it came to Obama, and then Trump versus Hillary, and then Biden versus Trump, and then Trump again, and JD Vance, I was so emotionally divested that I've actually found it interesting just to watch a tennis match where I don't care who wins. Right. Because now it's okay, all of y'all, that's what y'all like talking about. So even though I don't like talking about it, and I don't care which way is right or wrong, I'm not here to determine who's better. I'm just here to do the social observation experiment of looking at this. And I just can't help but see what I call camp mentality. In Hollywood and in the music industry, there's groups of producers, artists, the A&R and the goons and the homeboys that hang around the artists. That's known as Ian's camp, Alec's camp. Oh yeah, I was riding with Bieber's camp. Oh, I was over there with Lil Wayne's camp. It's just a producer who kind of has access. It's this loose definition of who's in their camp, right? I look at this technocratic camp like a unit, they all move together. And if you ask me, They too in him being in office where he's like, yeah, so I guess we're going to cure cancer in 2 days. And also like Project Stargate or whatever. And also like Sam Altman, I'm pretty sure he's human. He doesn't sound like it, but I think he's a person. And also Larry Ellison, I think this is version 5 of him. And also, you see what I'm saying? So it's the technocratic camp funding, nominating, moving, funding the data center, funding the ball and doing it. They're the momentum. You have this South African non-American billionaire who's like in the Oval Office with his kid and his Baphomet Twitter prick, outfit going, yeah, let's shake some things up, right? And nobody's really doing anything about it other than complaining. But to me, that's because we're so far over the charade of what this is and isn't that they can do that. And the fact that nobody does anything just proves that it doesn't matter. It's like the rhetoric is the proof that it doesn't matter, because in a real republic, it would be not J6, like some actual men in the streets type situation.
Are you saying basically that like they don't even have to use as much propaganda and obfuscation at this point? They can just like straight up just do whatever the hell they want to do, even with people, even when people know. Because
what are they going to do about it anyway? Because the most they'll ask is like for another person to help fix it. And so my point is, I think that when you're a charismatic person enough to become a president, you know how to talk to people. When you're looking at cue cards the whole time reading, you're not talking to people. You probably were not even made aware of what you would be announcing until right before you walked in that meeting.
They're all faces.
They're all, exactly.
They're fronts.
They're front.
I mean, in a way, it comes back to our controlled opposition conversation, where it's this different political version of like that actor out on the front lines, that JD Vance. I really do think that JD Vance is just a front. He's just a face, a character, a puppet to stand in front and deliver the points for the camp, for the technologist camp.
Exactly. And the camp has...
And I think that a lot of people... So I get a lot of signals about JD Vance from people in this industry. Like I just talked to Tucker, got his signals on who he thinks JD is. And a lot of people have... And like realistically, every signal I get is that he's a nice guy. Like everyone says that JD is a really fucking great guy and a nice guy. And like I get that from angles that I actually do trust too. But the thing about controlled opposition is that JD might be a nice guy. He might not even fucking realize what's going on, because ultimately, if you put yourself in his shoes, who is he? He's like some like dude from middle of nowhere with no future, just trying his best, trying to be an American, trying to get his shit together. He goes to college. He meets this really nice guy with all this money who like helps him out. So suddenly Peter's a nice guy to him and he's a friend and he helps him out. He makes friends. Like I'm sure that when Peter's nice to you, he's like a nice guy, even if he can't answer if the human race should endure or not. But then JD walks through his life and he like gets helped by these people and he makes friends with these people. And when you're the patsy getting passed through the system, you don't even realize necessarily that you're the fish in water, right? And as you're swimming through it, you don't have the perspective to realize what's going on there until you wind up as the vice president of the United States. And you understand that like you got to make some compromises in politics and this is just how it works. And you're like the perfect little good like guy to get that done. And that's who they want, is they want that nice guy that someone like Tucker could be like, JD's great. JD has great opinions. He has great vibes. He's real. He's who he is. That's exactly who they want for that role, because they need someone that is a nice guy, because they're busy back here fucking scheming on how to turn you all into robots and plug you into the matrix and steal all of your brain juice.
And their main guy isn't a nice guy to at least 50% of the people in the country.
Exactly, right? And so I think that I'm a little torn on JD, because I think there's this perception when you talk about like the funding by T and all that you're implying that he's like in on some satanic con, which maybe. But all the signals that I'm getting is actually that he's this perfect example of controlled opposition, where he is
not an agent, but controlled opposition.
Yeah, exactly. Where he is like literally Truman in the Truman Show. And he's wound up in this house playing this game, being like, we're going to try to make a difference and we're going to do our best within the system that we fucking are a part of, without realizing that like, no, you were put in this house and this house was built around you. And your job is to walk out the front door and wave every day.
Well, that's what's so wild about like algorithms, echo chambers, and friend groups, right? Because for my friend group, it's like no duh in my algorithm, and the people I follow, no duh, the like technocratic agenda and what Peter Thiel is funding in Palantir is a fucking horrible idea. And then it's like my question that comes in is, how much of the rest of the larger both freedom movement and then really the rest of the world has come to that understanding. And I don't know how to accurately answer that. I would imagine very few. So the point that I'm getting at is, to your point, is that JD Vance could be so insulated because, I mean, when you're the vice president of the United States, like a gazillion narratives, tweets about you every day. You know what I mean? Like, you get it, and you're not even close to the fucking vice president of the United States. I can't even imagine trying to sort through like all the different narratives about yourself, not that you even care anyway, nor that JD Vance even cares. But the point that I'm getting at is this idea, which I've come to understand, or I've come to believe is the correct assessment, that technocracy and transhumanism is bad, may not even be in his, like within his point, what word am I looking for?
His awareness.
His awareness. Yeah, his awareness.
Because everyone that he's ever interacted with on it is our innovative venture capitalists that are trying to push, like we're trying to push medicine forwards. We're trying to push, think of all the people you could save. I mean, look at literally Trump's second day in office. They fucking wheeled out Larry Ellison to tell us how AI is going to program fucking mRNA vaccines per person with no testing, inject it. Don't worry, you won't die. It's going to be fine. Not like we literally just elected you to put Anthony Fauci in prison. Right. That's not why. Like, we literally like you put Fauci under the dirt. That's where everyone wanted Fauci, and instead you wheel out Larry Ellison on day 2 to give us customized mRNA vaccines. Like, what could go wrong?
The thing that Fauci gave us, but 2 days, only 2 days, right? Not 9 months, it's like 2 days.
The amount of insulation that their awareness can have is it's insane, right? And Trump especially, because he's an older boomer.
And that's where I wonder if, like, for someone like Trump, is like, does he know?
I don't think he does. I think Trump's entire information space is a walled garden. And I think, and this is actually like classic CIA history, when you read CIA history, is that the controllers, the intelligence agencies largely, they get very good at realizing that what they need to do, because they serve at the pleasure of the president. Intelligence agencies and these folks that do pull a lot of strings, most of them serve at the pleasure of the president if the president were to actually understand how to wield the power to control them, which they don't. But they learned early on, like way back in Truman's days, that if they can put up an information wall around that president, they actually can control the president's thoughts and actions. And then they can actually like run the show. And they learned that way back in Truman's day, and they've been doing it ever since. And it's very much well historied. We're just in the moment. So like, we don't have the history yet of how they're doing it, but they're 100% doing that.
One of the examples that's like a disconnect for me that makes me call that into question, because I could totally see that, would be the example of Venezuela, right? So like, this is very easy to find. Trump received $93 million from oil and gas executives and companies for his 2024 campaign. Like, that's super easy to find that information. The DEA's own internal reports do not list Venezuela as being problematic with respect to fentanyl. And they do list them as being problematic with respect to things like cocaine, but they also list a variety of other countries that have cocaine and fentanyl coming from it. So it calls into question this idea that like, oh, we need to attack Venezuela based on that premise. Then the third thing is Trump himself pardoned, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, from my understanding, he pardoned someone else, another president. I want to say it was Colombia's president. Maybe I'm incorrect on that.
Yeah, I forget who it is, but he pardoned a different president that was a narco trafficker kind of guy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But then he's going after Maduro supposedly for this exact thing. All that is the narrative leading up to Venezuela. And then it's now like so blatantly, and this goes back to the point on we don't even need to like have propaganda anymore. At this point, we can just say what we're doing. He's like literally outright saying that this is related to oil. Like, we're doing this for oil.
Well,
like,
you're actually, what you're talking about is the information surrounding it. And you're kind of talking about sources related to the government.
Yeah.
But that's not what Trump is paying attention to. That's not actually Trump's information flow. Yeah. Trump has never read the DEA reports about what fucking Maduro is up to, right? Trump has watched Fox News. Trump has watched his favorite news anchors. He's maybe had a conversation with Tucker from time to time, but he's mostly just watching Fox News, right? And so it's just like controlling what they're actually seeing, because it's not just what information is true, but it's what sentiment is true. How do people feel? And right. And if you can surround that person, that decision maker, with the feeling that this is the right way to go, this is true. Like, he is actually a drug smuggler. He's an evil fucking dictator. Everyone wants him out. Venezuelans want to, no, the American people, they love you. They love it when you do. Like, There's a million ways to control that sentiment space, that idea space. And you just need to control it enough to be like, Mr. President, this is the right way to go. And it's going to work. And here's why we know it's going to work. And everything you're seeing shows you that it's going to work.
And he could be thinking from like a business perspective too, and going back to the original point, like he's looking at, okay, oil and gas, our economy runs on it largely. We need to get oil. And then we'll do that by any means necessary, even if it means doing another regime change that leads to like millions of displaced people, possibly like God knows how many deaths. I don't know.
Like how many 80-year-olds do you know, right? Everyone out there, just think about the 80-year-olds that you know. Right. How fucking easy is it to control their mindset? Because if you know them well at all, if you spend any time with X and such 80-year-old, you know all their tics, they have all their patterns, their brain is already getting tired, they don't have any fucking clue how the internet works in a major way. And you have all this information advantage on them. Like any one of us could control an 80-year-old on our own by just like day after day, put in a different newspaper out or like doing this or like feeding them this story or asking them this question. It's like 80-year-olds are old, dude. They're not prepared to engage with this media space. And so we're literally talking about like the information literacy of like an 82-year-old man or whatever, up against the most powerful intelligence operations the world has ever known, with all the technology and money and funding that comes with. So it's like, it's no surprise they can control Trump's information. But JD should know better. JD is young. He should be smart. He should be aware of what's going on here. And from the signals I'm getting from like people that know him out there in this industry, it's like they paint a picture of a man that should know better.
Yeah.
And so the fact that JD doesn't know better gives me pause. But right, it gives me pause that there's something else going on there, because if he is who they're all saying he is, he should know better.
Mm-hmm. So to your point, and I would just like to state I am a professional conspiracy theorist. So I put everything on a spectrum, right? I know none of us know exactly what, right? So we're all giving our best take. I think that's a very solid take, but I would place that take on the more sensible end of a spectrum, whereas the more crazy end is this.
100%.
I honestly think that human augmentation and transhumanism is this technocratic camp's deal. They're all augmented already.
I see what you're saying.
So JD and this concept of like, he should know better because it's all implying that what they want is the same thing as what we want. Our bodily autonomy, our skin, the choices in our medical. I think what they're going for is this. We're already in Westworld season 3 and we trying to go to season 4 and we trying to normalize this so that when we come out with all these new services and blockchain related things tied to it, we can just keep the ball rolling. That whole cure your cancer in 2 days, the biggest question that I had, which I already kind of knew the answer at that time, but the biggest question that anybody should have had was how? Hello, Mr. President, Larry Ellison, excuse me, I have a question. How the fuck? You know what I'm saying? How are you going to do this? And the answer is actually, we've been researching this for a very long time and most of us are already augmented. We just haven't branded it well. RFK, get up there and tell them everybody's wearing a wearable. Larry, get in here and tell them how, crime will be better or something. Sam, act human, but at least get up there and tell them how great it is. Just download the human model. I don't know, just make it believable. I look at this, I look at Peter Thiel like, yeah, let's talk about the Antichrist. And it's like, what are y'all? Because y'all all come off odd to me. Now, again, it's a spectrum, right? So on one end, we're talking a comprised or compromised, maybe nice, walled, gardened off, informationally very curated individual. And on the other end of that, I really think we got some military bases with some PlayStation controllers logging into people underneath their skin, because that's what all the new Netflix franchise, all Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV,
so true.
Everything is trending in that direction.
Severance,
everything's trending that way.
Bro, that's such a good point, man.
The tech oligarchs, the Elon Musk, like while Elon Musk is standing in the Oval Office talking about the day with his kid when he was running around and kind of right. That same day, Ashley St. Clair, his newest baby mama, is essentially saying, hi, we're 3D printing our 13th kid, or his 13th kid. And I'm sorry that y'all have the story twisted, but let me set the record straight. Elon and I were never together. We're making our baby via genetics from other organisms, so weird. PGT&M and CRISPR. He has mixed genetics from other organisms for superior health. And
did she say that?
Yes, in the tweet.
What the fuck? I didn't realize that was in the tweet. I remember the tweet, but I think I misremembered it as like they just used in vitro or whatever.
She said that in the tweet. What she says is, please, I wish the rumors would be clear. Elon and I were never together. we're having our baby via PGT&M and in vitro fertilization and CRISPR. Elon is managing the whole project. I have full trust in him. Our baby is being born with modified genetics for superior intelligence and immunity and health. I wish people would just let us alone. That's kind of how it ended.
So which the first red flag there is like, we've got a tech billionaire who's choosing not to have sex with the girls he's impregnating.
While Grimes is on Twitter, Grimes is like, Elon, answer me. Your baby is tweaking. It's the software update didn't go right. And your staff's not getting back to me. I'm sorry I have to come on Twitter like this, but this is baby 11 and 12. Hit your girl back. That's a real tweet too. So Grimes is saying what she's saying. Ashley St. Clair saying what he's saying. Elon's over here literally like waltzing up with baby number 4, X-2, or whichever one in the Oval Office. Trump is basically like, if I say anything, they don't hit the button on me. And JD Vance kind of like, does this eyeliner, does the digital quantum tattoo stay on? We have to keep applying this eyeliner every week. It's one of those things that I'm zooming out, right? And everything about our world is based on futures, betting, the markets, where things are trending, where things are heading. And I think that so much of the conversation amongst the people who really do want to learn is all about conversing amongst what the slowest person in the room understands. And I think that we're kind of dancing between what the most advanced person in the room understands and whatever that gap is with each individual, whether they're full on Westworld meets Truman Show, or there's some sort of just decent human mixed up in the bigger apparatus.
Hey y'all, I'm here with Melissa Kupch from Remedy Academy of Homeopathy. We are so stoked here at The Way Forward to be partnering with Melissa and Remedy in order to spread the message of homeopathy across the world, and also to partner on the eventual development of healing centers across the United States.
People are pretty quickly coming to realize that frequency is the future of medicine. We are witnessing the great resurgence of homeopathy right now. We're really moving away from that suppressive medical model, whether it's for eczema, asthma, hormones, fertility, anxiety, depression, trauma, whatever it is, it all starts as energy in the person's field first. If we change our field, we can completely change our life. Our 2-year academy is open worldwide to anyone who wants to become a homeopath. We've got 5 lecturers and we currently have over 500 students enrolled, which is record numbers in our field. A career in homeopathy is amazing for anyone who wants flexibility in their work and who wants to be valuable in creating this new world. We have stay-at-home parents enrolled. We have ex-medical professionals, grandparents signed up who want to learn how to heal their grandchildren and pass on that invaluable knowledge. We even have husband and wife teams. So my husband enrolled in the course with no prior knowledge of health as a background, and he is loving it.
Kylie is also enrolled as well. So my partner is, and she's so stoked to become a homeopath and to be helping to spread this message across the world.
The thing that we hear from so many of our students is, I found my thing. Homeopathy is the key. We harness frequencies from nature and we alter the field of all creations. So if anybody wants to join us or they want to know more about it, they can visit our website.
Yeah, and all that information will be in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about Remedy Academy, also Remedy Collective, also some of the homeopathic products that they have, please just head to the show notes. All of that will be listed there.
I have a few things to say on that. The one example that we have that sort of gives me pause related to that, and I interviewed you and we talked a lot about Sabrina Wallace's work, like the biofield, which for those who are listening, watching, that may have not heard of that term, it's an electromagnetic field and it's comprised of other fields like scalar fields and things like this. I just call it like the etheric field that surrounds the human body. Anything that has an electrical current produces a magnetic field. We have a subtle electrical current flowing through us. We have a magnetic field that surrounds our body. That's called the human biofield. So most people tend to think that it is it's just a passive thing. Let's just put it that way for lack of a better term. But there's a lot of evidence, let's say, to suggest that both in terms of ancient indigenous cultures and ancient spiritual teachings, that it actually has active use, that it is one of the most foundational pieces of who you are. And that also relates to things like intuition, like some of these psi abilities, like telepathy and things like this. Telepathy tapes was above Joe Rogan for some time, which is wild. So related to that, but then also there is a lot of evidence to suggest that the government has, and other factions of shadow elements of the government, other corporations, you could say, have been investing in technologies related to interfacing with our biofield and manipulating our biofield, and even manipulating thought through our biofield. So, did I do that justice, you think? Okay. So, with that being said, when you look at Erica Kirk's eyes prior to all this shit and post all this shit, there is something off there. Like, that individual is not there. And yes, she has some sketchy things in her past. I'm like, that doesn't mean that none of that is true either. I'm not saying that like she was a great person, then abruptly something changed. There's so much we can speculate about that. All I can speak to is when you look at her eyes now, it looks robotic. It looks soulless, like something isn't there. So the other piece related to the Charlie Kirk thing, when it comes to the patsy that was this Tyler Robinson guy, you could very easily use MK Ultra-esque stuff that is still continued to this day. I am willing to bet a large amount of money on, where they're able to manipulate someone through their field to do certain things where, like, okay, Tyler Robinson had nothing whatsoever to do with this, but like, fuck, he's a useful person in this. Let's just like have him be the patsy, and then we can control him. It's almost like, what's that one movie where she like does the thing on the dish and says sink in there?
Get Out.
Get Out. It's almost like Get Out type shit, where like maybe Tyler Robinson's like, no,
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
his consciousness is like, no.
So to your point, Alec, that's the type of war. I want to give you guys a hypothetical quick scenario. So we've all seen the footage. I know spent time at the UVU campus. I heard the thing about the maroon shirts. No matter whatever percentage of that, how many people was out there? 1,000, 500, 2,000?
Yeah, watching in general.
Yeah.
I think a couple thousand.
Okay, let's just say 2,000.
At the event?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say 200 of that 2,000 was part of 2 or 3 different operation teams. And the point of those operation teams was to be like improv. It's almost like hot potato. Plausible deniability on top of plausible deniability, on top of technology, on top of need to know, on top of covering our tracks, right? Everything is like built for the operation and for the conversation about the operation, since it's such a public thing, right? It's the point of it is to talk about it. So we had people posing as cameras in bushes, taking angles. You had like legit attendees. You had non-legit attendees. You had military. You had redundancy military.
People with fake badges, people with real badges, people with guns, people with fake guns.
And I think that all of those people are given the effective equivalent of like a crisis skit scenario practice drill type thing, right? Like, this is our protocol. If this happens, then this. And some relatively small operations command from some planes, from a wireless relay sensor, are logging into 5 or 7 different people of that 200, executing this, Tyler, this person, George Zinn, that person, Mikey McCoy, da da da. And nobody's really made aware of exactly what happened. The thing that got me was when Brian Harpo was like, oh, Sean Ryan, you see, well, actually, blah, blah, blah. And Erica was like, we didn't authorize him to go say that. So then it's like, well, okay, so you, they're doing the same thing with Brian Harpo that they're doing with Andrew Coley.
I don't know who he is.
Harpo is the head of security.
Oh, okay.
So it's so many because we're in this video game war, right? They're the ones saying we're going to tokenize and NFT everything. They're the ones saying we're going to cure your cancer in 2 days. They're the ones looking 82 going on 1,002. You see what I'm saying? I think we're in this human augmentation camp, where this camp over here is about trafficking and legacy money, and this camp over here is about technology and this and this, and this camp over here is about war. And they kind of all want to run the world, but they have a little bit of different strategies on how to do that. And I think that the technology camp is actually proliferating. All the trends on the tech sector are going like this in every category. And they're coming out and saying, cure your cancer in 2 days, right? Nobody's asking for that. We're still asking for justice on this whole Fauci situation with the COVID shot. They're coming out and just da. And Vance, to me, sits as somebody who will simply sign and push the bill forward when it's time. See what I'm saying? So it's like a camp whose technologies, maybe let's say 50 different technologies that are made by Boeing, Raytheon, all these different companies behind this camp with funding from all around the world. An Indian camp doing the same thing, a Chinese camp doing the same thing, probably a camp in Greenland and one under the base in Antarctica. All these different camps. And I gave the example earlier, just how in the music industry, a camp is this unofficial term for all the people who affiliate with the main guy. Yeah. So if you in Wheezy's camp, you just know, I'm in Alec's camp. I can get in touch. I can put in a word to Alec. I'm in this camp. But the camps, we kind of like, you just work enough around. You're like, I was there riding with Bieber's camp. I was riding with Chris Brown's camp. They sometimes overlap, but not necessarily. I think we're looking at that in our presidency with something equivalent to a walk-in or a duplication being the better controlled opposition. Because at that point, when they're not in policy agenda forward mode or PR mode, they're just in be nice to everybody so that all the stories on the backside check out mode. You see what I'm saying? The point isn't to have to be depraved anymore. It's simply to be blanked out like Dolores. Oh, that doesn't look like anything to me. I don't know what's going on.
That's my question, right? Like, how does Trump, as an example, and there's countless examples of something like this, because you can find footage of him talking about like, the world is a better place. I don't remember exactly what he said, but the world would be a better place if Muammar Gaddafi was still in power. And now Trump is doing regime change. But one of the most glaring examples is in like 2012, 2013, he had multiple tweets where he was openly discussing the link between vaccines and autism, like openly discussing it. How do you go from that? Because any person who's become a quote unquote anti-vaxxer that I don't know anyone personally who's done the actual objective research on vaccines and goes the other way and like, no, vaccines are good. I don't know anyone, dude. 0% chance in my direct experience that happens. So given he is tweeting about that at that point in time, how do you go from that to being the one to initiate Operation Warp Speed, to consistently tell your following, your audience, your supporters, your voters to get the vaccine, to giving Anthony Fauci a freaking President Accommodation Medal before leaving office, and to still consistently be praising the vaccine? Like, how does that happen?
You get swapped.
You get swapped or like blackmail with Israel.
It's also just as easy that you're just a political scumbag from the start.
Yeah.
That you're just raised with no morals from the start. You're a ladder climber that's there for the money from the start. Yeah. I mean, his fucking mentor was Roy Cohn, right? Like his mentor was literally the mob lawyer that helped invent the video sexual blackmail industry and helped blackmail the director of the FBI with these crazy fucking parties at the Blue Suite. And I keep going back to Roy Cohn over and over with Trump because it's from Trump's own description of his upbringing that he's like, I looked up to Roy more than anyone. His switchboard operator said that he called Roy Cohn 25 times a day. Like when that's your role model in your formative years as a businessman coming into the power players, into the big leagues, it's like, dude, I don't trust a single, like whatever morals he's got, whatever he's saying with his tweets, I'm not surprised at all that it'll flip flop from year to year based on what's going to get him power and what's going to get him money and
it
prestige.
Makes you wonder if the autism tweet was his original idea to begin with, if it wasn't just focus grouping at the time. Because that was 2013, it was only 12 years ago.
Good controversial, kind of alt-right kind of take at the time. And at the time, it really energized everyone on the right that he needed to capture, the populist movement on the right, to be like, wait a minute, is this our guy?
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
That's why I just like, it'll segue too much to go too deep into it, but have either of you heard of this Sasha Riley situation? It's been going viral the last couple of days.
I've heard about it, but I don't really know anything about it.
Bro, I'll have to look into it. If this goes bigger, if the viral win catches any bigger, it's going to probably be the biggest story of the year because it's a guy saying he was directly assaulted by Trump specifically, and he recalls the memory. He tells the situation.
Dude, I am deep on the fucking Trump is gay train. I'm with the Trump is gay train, dude.
Oh yeah, for sure.
100%, dude.
And
I've never heard of this shit at all.
Dude.
So
have you heard of this?
Dude, yeah.
You don't know about the Bubba email?
Okay, no, I did the Clinton stuff. Okay, I did.
But then who did the dude come and say it wasn't Clinton? I think it was other dude. I think that the name of the game is something gets put in you when you when you are under this occult practice of this moon child kind of like ritualistic life. And that bubble he was talking about earlier is like even further put into place by ritual possession. And in that ritual possession, I think there's an exchange where there's like, you can act out, but you got to keep it together, but then we can just let you do your thing. Because the gentleman in this 6-part audio series, they've only released part 1. They recorded it last July, but they published it, I think, the 14th or the 12th. So it's only been out for 4 days. It's a Substack article that's 6 Substack audios, but I listened to it on the drive here and I'm sitting going, if enough people hear this and understand that this is precisely how this works, this will be a major cog in bringing down this. Because what the guy explains is Epstein wasn't running anything. Trump and other businessmen were running his particular division of the ring. And when they tweeted, when they were recording this, because in it, she's talking like, what's today? And he goes, it's July 20th, 2025. Or maybe it's June 20th. And that was, to me, if I recall correctly, around that time where this Democratic hoax just came out of nowhere. Remember, all just like, it was a Tuesday morning, everybody was, oh yeah, the Epstein Files is a Democratic hoax. And we're all like, okay, that was a weird energy to start the week with. They're not, but like, I think it was relating to their awareness of this interview happening, because it's the quickest way to basically dismiss everything he's saying, because the interviewer is liberal. Now, she's not like preachy in the series, but you can tell a couple times she's like, oh, well, if Joe Biden knew about this, I'm sure he would have done something about it. And you're like,
no, he fucking wouldn't have.
I'm gonna let you start where you're at, lady, because you're helping, but like, we'll revisit that comment later. Yeah. But the point is, it's a gentleman, Sasha Riley, who claims to have been essentially adopted by parents who were kind of scumbags and had some dirt on, and got siphoned into a lower level, kind of almost like indie hillbilly circuit, occasionally getting brought up to the bigger circuit. And he was like, Epstein was not running anything. He was managing, and he would hire people like my dad, this guy's dad, to go and actually procure the kids, because he was in the foster system. He had all the street level stuff. Wow. The elites would come in for parties on Labor Day, Memorial Day, stuff like that. And it would be like, get your crap together. And it's a pretty gory story, but
super dark to learn that kind of shit.
He tells a story of essentially the night he tried to take Trump's life. And he said, I thought that I was going to die. So my approach was to take whoever was with me. And he had been with a friend of his who was also trafficked. The two of them were together. 6 dudes come in, rape, shoot her. And then they tell her, the next dude coming in, you better do anything he wants or you're going to be next. And that next dude coming in happened to be Trump. And that led to a series of them doing this, that, and the third, until Trump laid on his back and wanted to be penetrated by this 13-year-old at the time boy. Trump's in his 40s or so, the late 30s, early 40s at the time. And the boy takes this fire poker he had been eyeing across the room, in this particular room, puts a condom on it and shoves it in his ass and kicks it, to which he had to get medevaced out of the scenario. And the interviewer makes the connection that this might be the sources of the whole incontinence rumors and all the stuff that's been circulating. Now, again, speculation according to, but this is a testimony that when I heard it, I'm listening like, I think this is accurate, y'all, because I've been around this from a Hollywood side of stuff, not in the trafficking, just adjacent to it and hearing enough stories. And it's exactly like what this dude is talking about. And Epstein, to me, being the big focus is exactly, it's like, because Trump hired Epstein, he's the perfect person for the fake expose of this whole thing. You see what I'm saying? It's like the pedigree man giving the dog the bone, because he's the guy that worked at pedigree, so he can always have a bone to give. And he's got a monopoly on bones. Yeah. But that's the reason we get this. We're coming out with, okay, but we're not. Okay, Pam Bondi says we all got all the files, but Kash Patel says we don't. And then we're going to redact them. But DC Drano and everybody else come in and say, oh, we got the notebook. Well, I guess they're redacted. It's a Democratic hoax.
Pack it up, but they got away from them. And it's like, oh, you were in over your fucking heads trying to control, release that shit.
Exactly. So
you are way too tied into that.
Now we're dealing with too many people having memories coming back. And I just see this 80 of their time being abused in networks related to Trump. Another good one is the Anya Wick, I think is the lady's name. She claims to be Epstein's niece. Okay. And her big claim is very similar to this gentleman's. Epstein wasn't running anything. He worked for her dad, whose name is Stephen Epstein. Jeffrey was Stephen's brother. And they managed a network, but it was not theirs. It was someone much bigger's. And so everybody's questions is like, where's the blacklist?
He definitely wasn't in charge. He definitely wasn't in charge.
And to that point, that's why I think Fuentes is like missing the entire mark on the honeypot being the only answer for some of this, because I don't think it's that. I think when you can wirelessly log into people, honeypot, that's all last year. Y'all can talk about all you want, because that keeps everybody not talking about what we're actually doing technologically. And I'm somebody who does a lot of watching, and I do less speaking than I do listening. And I'm listening to it all. And I'm just like, you guys, I don't know what to tell you other than I'm pretty sure we're well into computer world with this. The DoD said in 2005, this is ready. This is commercial. The ability to access up from 40 to 100% of the cellular states in your body wirelessly on an iPad since 2005. We're 21 years past that deployment. Then comes 2015 when it went commercial, or when it went public commercial, and then 2017 when the DoD says, hey, because we decided to route data through human bodies, we need to make that secure. We can't just have Iran or Qatar hacking into your butt cheek to get our top secret.
That's public that they said that?
Oh yeah, there's symposiums. But here again, what news report is reporting on a DoD symposium from 2017 about their customers? The Department of Defense has customers now. Who are these customers? Well, the customers are anybody from Amazon Web Services who wants better processing. So they'll choose biological data processing versus server data processing. More green, right? And
this goes back to your point on how sophisticated ads are at this point too. Right. Like if you can how many times have you had the experience where you're thinking about a product, not even saying it out loud, thinking about a product?
I know I can't say I know. I have a strong hunch as to why that is. Because like you were just explaining earlier about how you can buy targeted ads that can very specifically target the phone of the child in the room when you heard the first ad. Imagine if that is augmented or enhanced by the ability to suggest something to a digital twin version of you. This is a genetic in silico mimic of the idea of you electrically in a water-based state, knowing that through the exclusion zone water and through this etheric connection, like resonance with the two wine glasses, you rub your finger on one, eventually the other wine glass starts humming and you don't even touch it.
That's a wild idea.
And so they're blasting ads on one and you're just picking it up through the ether, imagining it. As soon as you lock into like, oh, I think I would like a new pair of sunglasses, boom, then they follow it up with the visual ad. And so it's like,
dude, if they're not already doing that, you're giving them some damn good ideas. That's a crazy idea. That totally could do it. Because you know the what is it, the like 7th monkey experiment, or whatever, right? Like you get enough monkeys in the thought space to learn a skill, and then suddenly they all know.
That's what it is. I think that's why dreams are being hijacked and stuff. I think people dream. I'm just saying there's advertising happening in dreams. I think there's advertising happening when it comes to addiction, recovery, and just the voices that I think half these people have lived with have actually been synthetic AI suggestions and not demons. I mean, DEADAEMON in a computer.
It could be one or the other too, though.
Yeah.
Have you
looked at
be both. I think his name is Jeffrey Marzinski. Is that the guy? He's a psychiatrist, if I remember correctly, who's not a Christian himself, but he talks about how he thinks that schizophrenia is actually some sort of demonic possession. If I remember correctly, that's what he's looked into.
I think so too. I think if you were to line 10 schizophrenics up, 4 or 5 of them have classic demonic possession. 2 of them are in some new project we've never heard about, and they're in the R&D phase. And the other 2 are suffering from some sort of abuse that hasn't been processed. And the abuse was either at the behest of some sort of spiritual or some sort of experiment, or their imagination didn't have anywhere to cope with the energy in that field being released during the trauma, and it got stuck in the field. I think all of those are happening.
Yeah,
and I think
got you.
Deciding is this not that is kind of what makes the internet conversation kind of like what you were saying about the debate. You got to kind of present these options. We need nuance. We need mature discussions. It's like, hey, look, some of these people are some computer bots, but some of them are just hurting, broken people that need our love and respect. You also mentioned precognition and telepathy. Empathy is another big one. I had to learn. Sabrina talks about that all the time. Empathy, telepathy, empathy, precognition being kind of 3 facets of the same neuronal network. And because they're trying to introduce artificial neural networks to liaise with your natural network, we're picking up the empathy of the world. So I think this collective depression is like kind of being cranked because we're being used outside of our normal function. And that use case requires a certain resonance. And that resonance is a lower vibration. And that low vibration creates a pain. And the empaths feel that pain. And then we SSRI or we take additive or stimulants or whatever to kind of like combat it. But once you start understanding the body's electric, the field around our bodies is just as strong as a Wi-Fi is, right? 20 years ago, if I said, hey, Ian, check it out. I got this flat piece of plastic. And if I hit go, we can download stuff from the internet. You'd be like, where's it plugged? 30 years, where's it plugged in at? Like, how are you doing this? Now it's simply, give me the code. Give me the code. Who got the aux? So in the same way, if we now understand that our tools are sensitive enough to perceive electromagnetic fields at a very subatomic, I wouldn't say particular, but just very, very low, tiny level, they've built managed systems that are using our field like a Wi-Fi router, and our body's mitochondria like computer processing, and our body's fat like computer hard drives. And they say in their own words that they've been doing this and that this is the future of human technology. What did the Motorola and the T-Mobile guy say? By 2030, the smartphone will be obsolete. That's in 3 years and 9-10 months. That's because they know we there. We put the Black Mirror episode out with the dot 10 years ago. Y'all saw the video. We got Bi-Fi coming and we're selling it like health. Are you sad? Would you like a little more dopamine and serotonin because you just
that's going to be
can't
dark
get out and run? Well, thankfully, under JD Vance care, you get advanced care. Would you like? It comes with a Maybelline contract. But you see what I'm saying? They're selling this. I mean, COVID was a great example. Don't take your health into your own hands. Don't do no research. Don't get no NAC and go out and get run. Stay at home, be sick, put some cloth over your face until you get more sick. And then if you're unlucky enough, you come into our building where we take you over the line. That should have been an example for everybody to say, I can't trust these institutions. I have to take these measures, at least in part, in my own hands. Technologically, we haven't really hit that COVID moment yet, right, where people realize we can't really trust these oligarchs. We can't trust the IEEE or the FCC to say, yeah, this non-ionizing radiation, oh yeah, it's totally safe. Just like you said about nicotine and mRNA and I don't know, everything from sugar to glyphosate. Pick a thing. Yeah. So I'm just going, at some point, you're a prophet or you're a conspiracy theorist. The timeline marker being where it is the only difference in when you call that accurately or whether you were just pipe dreaming. But I really am looking at this trajectory and I'm going, everything I'm saying, I'm tracking with y'all on everything. It's just that I think we're just a little further into that tech-centric zone. Mm-hmm. And that tech-centric zone has a lot of people just scratching their head as to how things work. Now, I don't have a strong theory on what I think really did kill Charlie, but I do think it was something more technologically advanced than a 30-06. Whether that was a microphone or some sort of wireless air pressure air bullet that...
Did you see what if this is true, the security from Maduro said about their capture of Maduro?
I was just about to bring that up because
you didn't see that?
You know who kept bringing that up to me?
Who? Sabrina.
Yes.
Yeah, of course
the whole time because she's like, you guys, this is real.
You got to read that shit, man. It's wild.
She's saying that when they captured Maduro, they used microwave sound weapons on all the locals are reporting that within the perimeter, everyone was bleeding out of every opening in their body.
Yeah, like all of Maduro's security supposedly.
I think it's you can say allegedly because it's your platform, but
I know, bro. Like I gotta be. I don't have to be, but I feel like to have some humility that I don't know for sure. But when we look at examples of like Havana syndrome, when we look at what was done in the U.S. embassy, yeah, exactly.
They've been real for
a long time.
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't think they revert backwards. I think they took them DEWs from 10 years ago and they put some upgrades and modulations.
It's just like MK Ultra. They're not going to shut the fucking program down. That's the most valuable program you could ever have. The question is, how far advanced is it?
It's wireless.
And that's where it gets complicated.
It's on a PlayStation controller.
But like the thing about Maduro's capture is it was surgical. It was effective. Like by the time, So like I had a couple buddies, like I'm sure that like when you're in this industry, you know some people that know some people.
Dude, I was also in the Army.
Exactly.
So like
You've got
for
buddies
me,
feeding
like
you intel.
I hit up one of my friends that was special forces. He wasn't involved in Maduro's capture or anything.
But
I was like, dude, what do you think about this, man?
They know people.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I saw videos.
Exactly.
I saw videos before everyone else did. The word was that by the time we were seeing the like bombing happen, Maduro was long gone. Long gone. It was like in, out. And so that's where that kind of a story actually like kind of tracks, because our boys don't always have the best record of success when it's actually just our boys.
Right.
You know?
Like
totally
Bin Laden or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
That report was coming out of Venezuela. These were locals reports. Now, the thing that I found compelling about that story is that when I, in my non-political cursory interest of it, am scrolling through, I'm seeing comments at the top saying, I'm Venezuelan. I'm really happy. A lot of Venezuelans are really happy about that. I know you got a lot of that on yours. Like, you speak to this, but you're not actually Venezuelan. This guy was a dictator. And I'm going, aside from the problem, reaction, solution, how do we know that in this post has 1,000 comments, the 7 I'm looking at are actually reflective of what Venezuelans really think? What if they're actually freaking out and they're not on Instagram right now?
No, the
like
comment section is very controlled. It's one of the most important things to control. Bots everywhere.
I want to speak to what the actual report was that I saw. It was one of Maduro's security guards was basically saying we were defenseless against what was being thrown at us. What was being thrown at us was like a sonic weapon that made it feel like my head was burning from the inside. I couldn't move. I was curled over, throwing up. Many of my associates, the other security guys, were also throwing up. Some of them were throwing up blood, and we were all bleeding from the nose and from the ears. That's what I saw, and I was like, holy shit, dude.
And I think that's what they do, because imagine the psychopathy and like microwave lasering some dude's palace, snatching him out because your boss gave you the tech and the money and the blackmail to do it. Having your second job that day is to convince your own people that it was a good idea and it was your idea when it wasn't, and it was not a good idea, nor was it your idea. Then you have the secondary team going in just to toss some fireworks and conventional bombs so that they don't have to explain why they just melted the whole palace and where that technology comes from and why is that ethical and how do we not know about this and what else have y'all used this on and what is the implications of this and who said this? You know, there's too many questions. And then when you can control the IP addresses of what info gets in and out, the American IP addresses simply don't get access to those beacons or whatever they put in the SEO and the metadata of those articles from Venezuela. So you get well-meaning people trying to help and go, well, every person I see who's Venezuelan seems to be saying it's a good thing. Meanwhile, their actual chief of staff is like, everything is melting inside my head. And we have, as Americans, to be mature enough to kind of grapple with that and say, under what pretenses, right? Oil, or is it even that? Because I still don't think it's even that. I just think, all right, Trump, this is what you're about to say. We're going to hit this button. You're going to sit there, take a bath, and get your diaper fixed. And we'll give you a little juice for the morning. But you're going to go out on that camera and you're going to say this was a successful thing. And we'll give you your extreme points and your benign points, but these are the parameters you play within. And that's what politics has always been. Right up until JFK was like, I don't think I want to keep doing this. Right.
Bang.
Right up until Reagan, it's like, yeah, I trust the government should be like the scariest word you ever hear. These guys, I think, FAFO. They come into the situation either groomed and controlled or completely, if this Vance perspective is accurate and not my wild theory, just green to it all, how it all works. Yeah. And they're kept insulated. And that's how it works. That essentially team of insulators is the deep state. And once you toss on technology, oh my goodness, bro. When you toss on technology and you're talking wireless tissue engineering, and again, not speculation, white papers from their agencies, you know, DOD directives that say our new warfare strategy is wireless network centric warfare.
This has already been demonstrated through lasers on lizards, I'm pretty sure, right? You know what I'm talking about, where like they like from a distance using a laser are able to get the tissue of a lizard to regenerate in a specific way or to regrow certain things. Like,
it's all manipulation of energy and light and water. It's on the crazy thing, as a engineering backgrounded person who wasn't aware of all this. And so I was kind of aware of the engineering framework, but just not the bio application. That's the part that's been the most surprising for me, is just wow, so soon, like I get ones and zeros in digital realm. I just don't get how that translates to a biological realm. But as soon as you talk about protein synthesis and electron presence or the lack of electron presence as being a 1 or a 0, now it becomes this very simple, almost like dummy switch that you can interface a human with the internet, because you're not building anything new. You're building one little widget that translates normal internet data into electrical biosignal, and that's it. And according to the DoD, they've placed that in every American since 2005. That's when they announced that they had done that. So that's why I'm like, this ICE thing, this is all like pomp and like rigmarole. If they really wanted to know who was where, they would just be like, give me the iPad. Okay. Biosignals, cross-reference the biodata with who has a social security. Okay, these people don't. Here's where they're located. Let's extract. That's how you do it if your point was to get people out. But it's not.
Clearly not.
It's clearly not the point. And the quicker people can just accept that and not get mad at Ian or me for saying that, it's just simply not the point. If you want to cut the grass this afternoon, the grass can get cut this afternoon. If it's 3 days later and the grass ain't cut, it's not because the Democrats ran the House. It's not because the Republicans didn't have enough representation in the Senate. It's because you weren't trying to cut the grass. Period.
The one thing that's frustrated me with ICE, and I do completely agree with what you said though too, that like if they really wanted to do what ICE is currently doing, they could very easily tap into some of the technology that they have and like all the data that they have on all of us. And it's also like with digital ID and stuff like that too. And this is where it becomes an interesting conversation, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole on consent, how like in order to really do from a more spiritual perspective, what they want to do to us, they require our consent to do it. Cause like they have the tech to do a lot of the things that they're, you know, leading towards right now anyway, then they're not doing, right? The thing that is frustrating regarding the ICE thing, first off, if again, I put down my phone and look at my immediate environment, there isn't fucking ICE raids happening all over the United States. That's the first thing. So do I think that at any point in the immediate near future, that's going to happen to all of us? No, absolutely not. I'm like not even kind of worried about that. This is where it does bother me, is the response to it from people who consider themselves to be freedom oriented and to be quote unquote anti-establishment. Because objectively speaking, yes, the Supreme Court recently ruled that like ICE and other federal agencies are allowed to racially profile along Latin lines and along accents. Yes, they ruled that. Setting that aside, walking up to someone and demanding ID with threat of imprisonment or detainment
with no badge.
With no badge, while you're masked, while you have tactical gear that would make special operations look
intimidated.
Yeah, exactly. Is absolutely insane, and it violates the Fourth Amendment, and it violates several like court cases that have been settled in the Supreme Court. So for me, it's not even about like those incidents occurring. And again, I don't think it's going to happen en masse, none of that shit. It's more so the indication that if it were to happen en masse, those who consider themselves freedom oriented, who stood up to COVID, now when the same style and type of tyranny is being pushed against people on the quote unquote other side, they're not only turning a blind eye to it, not only okay with it, they're actually cheering for it under the guise of, oh, we need to get out these dangerous illegals, which yes, there might be some truth to that. I'm not going to deny that. But this is a perfect example of how you get otherwise, good, kind-hearted, freedom-oriented people to cheer for tyranny. And that's what bothers me about it. The
duopoly. You get to buy into the fucking bullshit game of my team versus their team. Yeah. You're all peasants and they are your overlords and they do not give a shit about you. They're just rolling out more control, more digital control, more authoritarian control, more of this police state. And my buddy Valhalla VFT runs a YouTube channel. He called it perfectly as they were putting ICE in more cities, or rather, this is actually National Guard, not ICE. But similar concept is when they were rolling the National Guard into more and more cities and they put them in DC on the streets, he called it like 2 months in advance that what's going to happen is a National Guardsman is going to get hurt, shot, like stabbed, something. And then that's going to be precedent for more. And then that's going to be precedent for more. And then the DC shooting happened. And it's like exactly that. It's just escalations and escalations and escalations. It's how they start foreign wars too, is you go and start a revolution in Ukraine, then you get your guy in and then you start doing little shit on the border. Oh, look, he attacked me. right?
Totally.
Right. It's just all escalations of their agenda.
Yeah, 100%, man. I want to hear your thoughts though on like what you think is actually going on with that. Did you think I covered it or do you have more to add? Then I want to get into the Vegas shooting. Like that's the last thing I want to cover. And by the way, real quick, I got to say for those that are listening and watching, we'll do a members only Q&A with Ian sometime after this is published. We'll have the date by the time this is published. But okay, Chris, go ahead.
Your question, restate the question just so I can.
Regarding ICE, like what do you think is actually going on since they obviously do have the technology? I covered how they likely require our consent anyway, which is why they're not doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. I remember what I was thinking when you were first discussing this. So the reason I think they require your consent is what we talked about earlier. We are electric current on the inside and they are about moving social currency. And I think that what we've learned legally speaking, your signature at the bank is what actually generates the IOU on the backside of the legal tender, underwritten by the fact that a real person signed it in the first place. And that's the only thing underwriting it, just the signature. So I think that the signature is both functional and spiritual or energetic or something at the same time. So to apply that to ICE, what I see is almost like a protracted out Patriot Act after 9/11 type scenario, right? It's not about brown towel heads that just hit a building. It's about brown immigrants that have been pouring in from the last administration over the last 4 years. And of course, we're dealing with problem, reaction, solution. But the point of ICE to me is a psychological okaying, like kind of what you were saying. But again, it's maximizing the negative potential emotional state to drive the narrative at both sides. Great example is the Department of Homeland Security put out a tweet that said, you're now allowed to use extended forward. What was the big tweet that everybody was like complaining? This was either the day before or after the whole Renee situation. DHS put out a public X post that was basically like, we're authorizing all of our ICE agents to essentially step it up.
To use extra force.
Exactly. And I remember thinking, so that's not like an internal memo at the morning meeting. Y'all don't like send an email and that's so that everyone around the whole world just gets to see it and you couldn't text the people on your squad.
It's a posturing thing.
It's a posturing
thing. They want you to read it.
They want you to read it. They want you to see the guy in masks. They want you to see the
and they want you to cheer it on and fight back and forth about whether it's good or not.
Correct. It's another one of those, maybe it was just an unfortunate series of events, or maybe they had some remote control. I don't know. But the point is, this lady didn't seem to me like she was trying to start an international issue. And that the ICE agent seemed to me like he was looking for a fight, right? These are just subjective opinions. But the real issue is what you said earlier. When you want to clean the streets up, it's easy to do that. You got Palantir. We all know about Palantir. That's the one we know about.
I mean, before Palantir, they were cleaning the streets up faster than this. We're at a lower deportation level than any of the other presidents in our lifetime.
To Ian's earlier point, therefore, the point is therefore not to deport illegals. When I learned that human life and human energy is the currency after you get above a certain level, illegal immigration is a cash cow. Because while the Republicans will complain about the free $8,000 you're giving the illegal immigrant and not helping me on my tax reduction, what they're not being told is that's all they're getting is $8,000 and then a lifetime of being taken advantage of financially, with to the tunes of millions in the background. So you're just
plus all the human trafficking that comes in with illegal immigration,
plus the military moving around, and again, I'm married to a Swede, you know my wife. And I remember in Sweden in 2015, the European migration crisis. And I remember talking to her sisters, she talking Swedish all day, every day. Everybody's worried because on their social media and their news, all these brown folks was coming in from Muslim countries and it was going to take over Sweden. And we're 13 years out. Sweden is basically the same, right? And all that fear was just boiled and festered. It probably used to move legislations and things through at the time. And 10 years later, didn't matter if you were afraid. It literally changed nothing about your reality. But the conversation was similar then. We need to get these people out. These people are representing a decreased level of security because they don't carry the same moral values we do, which is true in anecdotal cases. There were increased.
There is examples of it for sure. Like one is Deerfield, Illinois. And with that being said, how much are they creating fear surrounding this to justify the
again, consent.
The consent,
or to manufacture rather, the consent surrounding digital ID.
It's like
more
it's saying,
biometrics.
It's safety. I got into it with a guy on the other day. We need to get these people out because we deserve safety. And I had to really be like, I'm not trying to mock you, bro, but like, I want you to read your own text.
Deserve is a dangerous word.
Oh, it's real dangerous, man, when you sit in that American seat after looking at the Venezuelans and the Ukrainians and the Palestinians. After COVID, just saying deserve safety. And I go, see, it's that thinking. It's the idea that safety is anybody's responsibility but God's and your own. That's really the root of the poison. Beyond that, we can hopefully expect our municipalities to have some decorum of safety, but we're inside of a trap, a booby trap, y'all. Ain't nobody safe in these streets. Diddy ain't even safe in these streets. So Epstein clearly wasn't safe in these streets. So all that to say, I think what we're looking at in the case of ICE is another attempt to do a conservative kind of George Floyd number on the other half. Whereas George Floyd and COVID was more about taking liberal altruism and doing that Loki with the Hulk at the end of Avengers when he's taking Loki like that. That's what George Floyd and COVID was, because it really got liberal thinkers to like stick some straight up computer question mark juice in their arm and trust Fauci for it, just so that the guy they hate can pardon him when their cardiovascular system starts failing. So that already happened, right? Now we're just on the flip side of that. I always thought conservatives, I like them, but it's going to take a little bit more than something to get them. Let's shoot. I thought that maybe the assassination attempt would do that, and it clearly didn't. And then the second one didn't work even more. Which it's hard to argue if that was a real thing or if they were focus grouping that at the time to see if it could be a real thing for later. Point being, it didn't move the needle as far as Republicans. So now I'm looking at this ICE situation. I'm going, okay, this is fine. I don't condone it. I don't agree with it, but I'm like, okay, finally, I'm moving the needle. Let's see if Americans are emotionally regulated well enough to not be taken advantage of this time.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir, man.
The answer is a resounding hell to the no.
And I think that's what's like most disappointing about it for me is that, and I knew there would be multiple points during COVID where like a lot of the conservatives I had aligned with, and when I say conservative, like I individually, as it applies to me and my family, have conservative values. But when it comes to socially, for me, the moral position I've come to is libertarian anarcho-capitalism voluntarist, because it applies principles across the board where I'm not going to impose my beliefs, nor do I believe it is right for anyone else, man, woman, doesn't matter if they call themselves government, doesn't matter if they have a special title, to impose their beliefs on others as well. Like I believe that is objectively wrong. That is the position that I have. But with that being said, when it comes to conservatives also believing in government, right? I knew there were going to be points where like, hey, we're aligned right now, but conservatives previously were like scared of the boogeyman terrorists and fully believed that we should go to Iraq under the guise of weapons of mass destruction and then do regime change there and then take out the Taliban. Oh, the Taliban's back in charge all of a sudden now. It has never worked. And there's going to be a moment in the near future where that's going to happen again. And I said that like 2 years ago. I'm like, watch, I'm telling you, it's going to be under the guise of illegal immigration and like the need to defend against terrorism and anything like that. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And I knew that this day would come.
Use an oracle, Alec. Or you have great pattern recognition.
It's just pattern recognition. It's pattern recognition,
y'all. That's the theme of, I hope, if everyone could take away from Alec's discussion today. I think Alex is very bright and in, but I think what you're great at is pattern recognition and articulating the patterns. That's all I do. I just toss a little color and some music underneath it. But the point that I think, at least I'd like to leave with, is simply there's so much power in stepping outside of the pattern. There's so much peace and personal clarity, and whether the country's going to be okay, I don't know, but I believe you can be okay. Amen. I believe you can be okay. I believe I can be okay. I believe you can be okay. I just don't know that America is okay. And I think that every ounce of energy spent to this nebulous idea of a country that doesn't even work like we were told versus individual solution, community solution, and individual accountability is simply a trade-off in energy that simply won't get you anything but FEMA camp entry ticket like a Willy Wonka when shit hits the fan. Because the whole point of the voluntary anarcho-capitalist mindset is be self-sufficient, just like your granddaddy and everybody before him was, until this federal conversation came in the early 1900s, turn of the century.
Amen, man. I want to talk about one more thing. I know we've been going for a long ass time. The last thing I want to talk about, you already gave a massive breakdown on Tucker Carlson when you're on a show of the Las Vegas shooting, but I do want to just touch on that a little bit. And maybe like how it relates to any of the things we're talking about right now.
In a million ways.
Okay, yeah, let's hear.
In a million ways. I mean, we were just talking about when they shove a story down your throat, they obviously have an agenda. The ICE story is all over everyone's feeds in every direction. Doesn't matter if you're left or right. It's in your feed in your direction. The Las Vegas shooting was not like that. It's the most deadly mass shooting in American history.
People forget that too,
right?
that was the most deadly mass shooting.
It was the deadliest mass shooting in American history. When you ask most Americans what's the deadliest mass shooting in American history, they don't even remember that Las Vegas happened. And the reason is because it went away from the news cycle in about 3 days. And when you get a psyop that is going the way they want, it stays in the news cycle and it stays shoved down your throat. And there was a lot of conspiracy theories about how Vegas was about gun control, right? And that would make sense if they had shoved it down your throat for 5 months about gun control. And maybe there was an element where that might have been a piece of a plan at some point, but clearly something didn't go that way and it had to leave the news cycle as quickly as possible. And what I kind of think I elucidated well on Tucker's podcast is that there's so many variables in that one in particular that just obviously immediately disqualify the entire mainstream narrative without any shadow of a doubt, that there was no way to spin that. There was no way to keep that in the news and not expose a much deeper thing going on there.
The glass under the Bellagio being broke was the one for me.
Oh, yeah.
All the other people on Facebook Live saying, I'm hearing gunshots. What you talking about? Long shooter.
Yeah,
well,
I mean, we've got
quick thing. We have Cal, who was at the Vegas shooting here off camera right now. Cal, again, from the Great Unlearned podcast. Awesome podcast. I've been on it. We did a group discussion with me, Cal, Mark Gober, and Joel Schaefer, which was amazing. Anyway, yeah, continue. And Cal, if you have any questions related to that, please jump in.
It's the kind of thing where we certainly don't have the answers yet of what happened, but a lot of great researchers spent a lot of time digging into possibilities and possible narratives. And we're definitely closer. We're definitely closer to an understanding of what didn't happen and what might have been happening. And I personally think that we're not going to get answers unless there's some miraculously independent journalistic breakthrough, because the government already knows. The government knows exactly what happened that day. And I got into it a little bit with Tucker of one of the most salient pieces of evidence of that is the SWAT team and the absence of the SWAT team, because someone had to tell the SWAT team where to go. And we have this lone gunman narrative where the only shooter in the whole city is in this room holed up in the Mandalay Bay Hotel. And Vegas has one of the most well-funded, largest SWAT teams in America, let alone the world, specifically for that exact moment. And that's the door they should be all busting down. And when they actually wait a whole hour before they even fucking approach that door, the team that busts that door down has one SWAT guy, 2 canine officers, and a bunch of random police officers cobbled together from other groups. And what that immediately tells you, before you even know all the other evidence of all the other stuff going on that night, is that the SWAT team is somewhere else, because something else is going on that's more important than the most deadly shooting in American history, allegedly, right? And so someone had to tell the SWAT team where to go. They didn't just rock up to work and decide to drive the other direction. Someone told them to go to something else that was more important. And the government obviously knows what was going on that was more important. And so whatever it was that happened there, they've got the files. They know what it was. And I personally, based upon my view of the whole situation, I personally think that it's still playing out on the international stage today, because I think that it's very likely that Mohammed bin Salman and the Saudi Arabian royalty was involved in some sort of assassination attempt on MBS's life. I think that's a highly likely analysis. And any version of that leads to it still being at play in the political sphere today, because MBS is about to become the king of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is extremely important to the global world order right now. He, as the king of Saudi Arabia, completely shifts the relationship to Israel in the order in the Middle East, and their relationship to Trump. Both of those nations' relationship to Trump is directly implicated because he was the commander in chief at that time, and so inherently would have been involved in whatever fallout comes from that. And so when you look at that shooting from the perspective of an attack, an assassination attempt on a Saudi Arabian royal?
Because he was there.
We don't know that.
Okay.
That's the critical piece that we do not know. There's a lot of evidence that sort of circles around that, but there's a clear gap in his timeline that almost feels like it's a blackout. But no, there was a video that was misinformation fed into the timeline at that point to sort of like try to claim that this dude on video was Mohammed bin Salman, and it obviously wasn't, as sort of like a fake piece of disinformation to debunk. But that in no way debunks the theory that he was the target of an assassination attempt there. And one thing I tried my best to elucidate on Tucker's podcast was the sort of Wahhabi versus newer factions in this sort of religious struggle for the nature and identity of Saudi Arabia that's going on, and how MBS and his line, the Salman line, sort of represents the shift towards a different and new Saudi Arabia that the old guard would very much see as an existential threat to their entire nation, let alone their entire faith of Islam. And so when you look at it from that angle, and then you look at the Middle East today, and you look at Israel today, and you look at Saudi Arabia today, you look at all of these complex behind the scenes agreements and handshakes that are happening with Trump and with each other. And it makes perfect sense that they're not going to tell us what happened there. They're going to keep that under wraps for at least 60 more years, because that would expose vulnerabilities. It would expose motivations. It would expose possibly collateral damage by who is supposed to be the good guys. And it's just inconvenient. Even if it's like the best possible explanation, it's still inconvenient to admit what really happened.
There was a variety of on the ground reports, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, that indicate there was definitely more than one area of gunshot occurring.
100% without a doubt.
Saying that there was some coming from helicopters,
yes,
possibly as well, right?
Many reports of gunfire.
Police scanner.
Kyle, you were there. Like, what was your experience, man?
Well,
here, will you come sit in my seat real quick? Is that okay?
yeah.
You look camera ready.
You gotta say pause when you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like where were you and what happened?
It's interesting because I've written a book, and today happened to be, I got the final copy typeset, and today was the day I actually read the book all the way through this morning.
Oh, cool.
How
right
was
on.
it?
Congrats, man.
Yeah, it took 6 years to do it. And it wasn't because it was a 6-year project, but there was like something just for me, like ready to put that chapter behind me. And it was a lot more that came after that. But yeah, it's so fitting that today I'm here with you, Ian, particularly with your ability just to break it all down. And a year and a half ago is when I started to follow you, with the Diddy stuff. And then you started to share with you earlier, share some of the Vegas stuff. And it was still, you hadn't put it all together, but you were starting to kind of dig into that. And it was fascinating. Like something didn't add up. And then as you started to relay this information, I went back and I read the book today. And one of the things that me and my friend Adam, who were at the shooting, experienced was that they were shooting at multiple casinos.
Oh, yeah.
And that certainly was a part of the narrative. And I was like, oh, I'm glad this is in the book because this was written years ago, that part. I was actually side stage. So the shooting from Mandalay, the tour buses, we were hiding behind the tour buses. So the shooting was coming, we were behind that. And then the stage was behind us. And yeah, just like in the experience, like everything just shuts down. You're just locked into like, what am I meant to do? Right? The brain turns off, the body takes over. And yeah, it's just, it's still pretty much a blur because of, you're kind of in that state.
How fast did you evacuate? Did you spend hours on the strip kind of traveling, or did you get in a car and get out of there quickly? Or
we were there for the 10 minutes of the shooting. And then it was probably 5 minutes or so later where they're like, okay, you're clear to go, run this direction and basically don't stop. And if you see anything, hear anything, take cover. And so we got out of the grounds and then just kept walking because everything was shut down. We were going to go back to the Bellagio where we were staying.
So you started walking up the strip towards the Bellagio.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when that wasn't available, we just kept walking until we could find some place. Grabbed a couple of waters at a 7-Eleven and then found ourselves at a fire station where they were staging a bunch of ambulances. And then eventually, sometime after midnight, which would have been 2 hours post-shooting in Vegas, we got an Uber and went out, I think, to Henderson, where it happened to be my friend is really close with Jason Aldean. And so we went to where the rest of his team was staying out in Henderson at a house, and then came back the next day, got our shit, and I came back to Austin.
Was that team still talking about it at that point? Did you get to hear any of their thoughts on it at all?
Nothing from the band, but the team we were with, like his management team or whatever, we're all just like watching the news the rest of the night, like what just happened, and got back to the hotel and turned the news on, like what's going on. And so
Alec asked if you experienced shots coming from multiple angles.
Yeah, I would say that wasn't my experience, but I wasn't that perceptive, and you hear the video, the audio, and it's like there's different. I mean,
you can hear it in the audio, right?
You can speak more clearly on this, but it was like shots fired at an incredible rate, and then there was silence, and then shots, and then silence. And again, in that state, my recollection's not great because I'm like, this is a one-of-one situation. Am I going to survive? Like, what's even happening? And frankly, for me, I wasn't scared because I was just so locked into, I guess, survival. And just paying attention to the one guy who was in our group that was directing us. And so just really, I mean, again, I'm just so grateful for the work that you've, continued to do, that you've done around that experience, because I haven't been able to explain it to people because it didn't really make sense as some of these other details came out. It's like an
open loop that's not closed yet, right? It's like,
yeah.
And something that traumatic and that fucked up to not just you as an individual and everyone that was there as an individual, but to like our nation, to like all of us as people, is like that demands this serious closure with so much force. Like the amount of force of the trauma of the event, it demands this closure. And I think for a lot of people, it's this like unclosed loop of that something is not right about that.
How many events are like that?
Right.
All of them.
Right.
COVID was
these days more and more.
These
days more and more. But that one has a particularly strong pale of lies around it, because whereas COVID, we went all the way through the propaganda narrative, we went all the way through the lie. Vegas, they clearly aborted the lie and just blacked it out. And there's not as many events that are like that.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
Right.
I think that's probably what's most fascinating to me when I listen to you on Tucker, where I highly recommend everybody listen to that, is that people that know that I was there forgot that I was there. To your point, like people don't even really remember that it happened until you bring it up. And then they know the story, but it was completely out of the narrative. For me, it's almost surreal because it really didn't play out for much longer than a few days. And yet, I certainly call myself one of the fortunate ones, not just because I survived, but I didn't have any real trauma from it. And frankly, it was the thing that woke me up to like, not just the conspiracies that came a few years later with COVID, but it was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Because the life I had lived up at that point, which was what everybody told me I was supposed to do. I got all the things, I had all the success, and it was like, none of that stuff came to save me in that moment. And so I'm, as much as I want to be very clear, like a lot of people that suffer continue to suffer to this day, but it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me to get me on a path that hopefully I get to share what I've learned, with others. And that's why literally why I started the podcast, because I started waking up to life being different than I thought.
I mean, that's such a great example of how everything is about perspective. And you can choose to take this perspective or that perspective, and it will dictate your entire life. You can choose to go with the narrative you're fed your whole life, or you can choose to wake the fuck up. And like even a tragic event can be the greatest eye-opening, awakening experience to catalyze the best good you could ever have. Right? Like
COVID did that for a lot of people. It was a sickness, job loss, pandemic that turns out woke a lot of people up to what's really going on. So
yeah.
I second that. It's like perspective. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. I'm happy you're here, though. I'm happy you made it through.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, it's good to be here. And it is. I think in almost all these cases, it really is an opportunity. It's just, are we ready to walk through that door? Because it's fucking brutal. Because the whole life you've built is called into question, and it's mostly bullshit. And that is The dark night of the soul.
Yeah, the dark night of the soul was like the dark week of the soul.
It's been a dark many
dark
years,
year of the soul, the dark decade of the soul.
Hell yeah. So let me get you back here to close out, but thanks, buddy.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because Vegas. So when I sat down with Tucker, Vegas was the topic, and I was kind of going back and forth with him for just a couple texts of being like, well, the obvious connection is the Charlie Kirk shooting right now, because it's like similar in the nature of the crime so much as because it's similar in the nature of the experience of the crime and of the experience of a cover up and the experience of like the details. And Tucker was so close to Charlie that it was like he's just still too emotionally raw to really like unpack the Charlie thing.
Yeah, I was surprised about that when I watched it. Like that was only towards the
it was palpable. The moment and the moment I brought it up, and I kind of knew that this would be the vibe, but I just kind of brought it up incidentally at the end there, and I could just feel like the heart tension just like tighten up in the whole room, and not in like a like don't talk about it way, but just in like a I'm raw about that way.
I'm not ready to go there type of thing.
And I totally felt it immediately. I was like, dude, no problem, man. Like I'll talk about that on other podcasts, because the thing that I think is that now people are more ready to talk about Vegas and actually listen to Vegas and unpack Vegas, because we're all watching the Charlie thing unpack, and people have gone through a little bit more now to collectively realize that like, yes, the most dark and fucked up tragedies can be not what you were told. They can be like, there are people in this world that will do things that evil. And maybe at the time, there wasn't enough people ready enough for that conversation, but I think now they are. And I think we still have some justice to pull out of that one.
And the big flip is like, a lot of people, most of us have been conditioned to believe that it is normal, quote unquote, like laymen and women, like citizens, right? That are doing these crazy, evil, malicious acts. And yes, that is true to some degree. But the flip is realizing that, they want us to believe it's the normal men and women, the quote unquote citizens, just the lay people that are doing these things, so that they can sell us safety and security, so that they can have more control, so that they can dominate a little bit more and we give our consent. When in reality, the really, really evil ones are the ones who seek power and control over others through mechanisms of government and want us being afraid of the lay men and women when they're the ones doing the insanely evil acts and orchestrating all of it. And that is such a flip, especially for those of us who have, there's a variety of things, unhealed parent wounds where we are now parentifying government because we, looked up to mommy and daddy and we have some wounding around that. And now we're doing it with government unbeknownst to us. That is a huge flip to come to that conclusion that it's mostly not these men and women. Yes, people do evil shit, don't get me wrong, but it's the people who seek power. Like really think about that. The mindset of someone who I think, even if they are benevolent, I think my ideas are so good that I want to use the mechanisms of government to make sure that they are spread amongst other people.
Pride.
Right?
The reason why pride is the most deadly of the sins. There's a reason why pride goes before the fall. Because it's the pride to think that you are so special and enlightened that your ideas could rule the world and it would be better. And maybe you'd be right. But the fact that you think you are is inherently is the corrupting nature that makes you wrong.
Yeah.
Amen, man. Amen.
Yeah, amen.
I think that about wraps it up. We've probably been going for like 3.5 hours, if not more than that at this point. So thank you for your time.
Go for 1,000 more
I know,
too.
man.
Especially once you crack open Vegas.
Oh my gosh, dude. Is there anything else you want to say to like wrap that up? Or
no, that's perfect. And it's been real.
Listen to him.
I really appreciate
Tucker.
it.
Yeah, of course, bro.
Yeah, we'll do more.
Yeah, man. This was amazing. Chris, thank you for driving all the way out here for this. Cal, thank you for coming over for this, man. Thank you for being in the audience. Ian, I really respect your work, man. And I respect that with respect to like the controlled opposition thing. Like, I really respect that you say like, look, don't blindly trust me. Please don't blindly trust me. Like, and that's kind of my perspective too. Cause I get called it a lot, not near as much as you, but I do. Like I made a whole post about this pretty recently where like, I've been called controlled op for my time in the military, for all the things. I'm like, look, like, don't ever blindly trust what I'm saying. Like, I want you to trust yourself. And if you come to the perspective that I'm controlled opposition, so be it. That's totally fine. And I'll just say for my own experience of you, man, you seem like
an awesome dude.
Thanks,
who
man.
just like woke up to a lot of stuff
Been a
and have
weird
a
ride.
good way of synthesizing information, dude. That's my
I'm just a
experience of you.
dude. But like the inherent the way I always look at it is people in my shoes or your shoes is like, you always have to remember why you're here. And for me, why I'm here is to try to seek the truth, try to figure out what the fuck is going on, and try to inspire more people to use their brains and to just get smarter and to ask more questions, just seek more truth and to figure it out for themselves. And so if that's my goal, then I should never be asking people to trust a truth. I should never be asking people to come to a conclusion and put it away forever. It's like, I could be compromised in the future by some mistake that I make. I could become some bullshit piece of shit in the future and start saying bad things. So it's like, there's no reason why, if my goal is the truth, then I need to always realign to like, am I saying things that help other people find the truth as well? And that generally helps just keep me right back to like, oh yeah, cool. Just like, look at the information, think for yourself. Do
Well
your own
said,
research.
man. Well said. Okay. Thank you, boys, for both being here. This was awesome. We'll have to find a time to do it again.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
All right. Much love, guys.